It starts on an ominous night. A passerby spots something massive in the bushes, but before he can react, a monstrous insect strikes, silencing his screams. Back on the sunny college campus, students are buzzing about a viral Insect Man video, naively joking that growing wings would be like becoming a superhero. Hearing this, our boy Sachin snaps back with a cold, sharp gaze, forcing his friends to awkwardly change the subject to tonight's drinking party. Despite that awkward moment, Sachin is the undisputed king of the social scene here, admired by girls, and boasting a perfect online reputation. To Sachin, human society is just like an insect colony with a strict hierarchy, and he sits comfortably at the very top of this social pyramid. He swears to protect his perfect status at all costs. But just as he resolves this, his friend teases him about a certain special someone. It's Mihue, his crush. The friends immediately wave her over, and she beams with joy, clearly thrilled to see Sachin among the group. However, as she runs towards him, Sachin isn't smiling. A sudden, terrifying sensation hits him, and he realizes his worst nightmare is about to happen. Just as the party was getting started, our boy felt a sharp, throbbing pain in his wings that made it impossible to keep his cool. To avoid exposing his secret, he had to make up a lame excuse and bolt, leaving his confused friends wondering what just happened. He managed to protect his secret, but his reputation took a hit. Hearing the whispers behind him, he could only grit his teeth and keep walking. From that day on, rumors started flying. The once popular guy was now seen as a loner with social issues, and his perfect image began to crack. Back in the safety of his room, our boy could finally drop the act. Laughing at his so-called popularity, he prepared to unleash the beast he'd been hiding. As he took off his shirt, the massive dragonfly wings burst free. Looking at his monstrous reflection with disgust, his mind drifted back to where the nightmare began. Back in junior high, he tried to kill a dragonfly with bug spray, but instead of dying, the bug melted away, and the fumes triggered a horrifying mutation in his own body. When he woke up the next morning with wings on his back, his life turned into a horror movie. Terrified of being discovered, he spent his nights hiding under the covers. To survive, he shut himself off from the world. He eventually decided to reinvent his look, hoping a perfect exterior would hide his deep-seated insecurity. But the most important step was dealing with the wings. He learned to bind them tight with bandages, a painful solution, but better than being treated like a monster. As long as he keeps those monstrous wings bound tight, our boy can fake a normal life, gaining confidence and even becoming quite the popular guy on campus. But the disguise comes with a heavy price. The unbearable pain forces him to unleash the massive dragonfly wings in the bathroom, a constant reminder of his cursed reality. Disaster strikes? Mihue walks right in through the unlocked door. Panicked, our boy jams himself behind the frame, desperate to hide his back from her view at all costs. Turns out his friends set him up, sending Mihue over with drinks. While cursing them internally, he frantically tries to come up with an excuse to make her leave. Mihue isn't buying it. She notices how he always disappears and acts strangely. Her honest concern hits home, making our boy flinch in guilt and terror behind the door. She's not taking no for an answer. Mihue plops down right outside the bathroom, determined to wait there until he comes out to watch a movie with her. She's not just being stubborn, she genuinely cares. After all, she hasn't forgotten how our boy bravely stepped in to save her from a creep earlier this year. Unaware of the chaos inside, Mihue sits by the door, pouring her heart out and asking to share our boy's burden. Though touched by her words, Sachin suppresses his pain and transformation, diverting the heavy topic by suggesting a movie date instead. Walking to the theater, Sachin is haunted by his predatory instincts, convinced that keeping his secret is the only way to protect her. Seeing Mihue so happy over a simple lollipop, Sachin realizes her innocence is too precious to be shattered by his monstrous reality. Inside the dark theater, as Mihue scoots closer, our boy's heart races not just from romance, but from the terrifying weight of his secret. He imagines confessing, but seeing the potential horror on her face makes him realize that silence is the only way to keep things normal. Suddenly, the lights go out. Before anyone can react, a terrified student bursts in, screaming for everyone to evacuate immediately. But the warning is cut short. A blade pierces through the messenger, pinning him to the doorframe. The slaughter has begun. Chaos erupts as the lights cut out, leaving a gruesome scene in the doorway. Our boy is frozen in terror, realizing this isn't just a random attack, it's a slaughter. The attacker reveals giant insect wings, locking onto Sachin like a predator spotting a meal. Our boy tries to cram himself into a corner, but his own wings make hiding impossible as the monster smashes through his cover. The monster closes in, savoring the fear. Our boy is completely overwhelmed by the predator's aura, scrambling backward desperately as he realizes he's trapped with something far stronger than himself. It turns out this guy used the same jungle juice, bug spray, but he's embraced the mutation. He mocks Sachin's fear, calling him a mouth-watering snack because of their shared insect DNA. Just when it couldn't get worse, Sachin's crush, Mihue, walks right into the danger zone. The mantis maniac immediately spots her, shifting his bloodlust toward the defenseless girl. Seeing the monster lunge at her, Sachin finally breaks his silence, screaming desperately for her to run. But human reflexes are no match for a killer insect on the hunt. In a split second, the glass shatters, and Mihue is knocked straight out of the high-rise window. Watching her plummet, our boy's mind goes blank. He has to make a choice, right now, or she's gone forever. Surrounded by cameras and prying eyes, our boy is paralyzed by fear. If he reveals his wings now, the normal life he's fought so hard to protect will be destroyed in an instant. But the villain doesn't give him a choice, dropping Mihue without a second thought. As the girl he loves plummets, the crowd screams, and our boy's mind goes blank. Instinct moves faster than thought. Our boy dives headfirst, ignoring the consequences, and manages to catch the most important person in his world just moments before impact. The villain laughs maniacally above them. It was a trap all along. He's betting that even an insect human can't survive a fall from this height while carrying another person. Looking at the terrified girl in his arms and remembering her kindness, our boy grits his teeth. Since the secret is out anyway, he decides to go all in. He won't let her get hurt. He violently spreads his dragonfly wings, using their high-speed vibration to break in midair. The physical strain is agonizing, but he shields her with everything he's got. The crowd is left in absolute shock. As he flies through the city with Mihue in his arms, his secret is laid bare to the world, marking the end of his ordinary life as a college student. But he wasn't just being watched by civilians. A mysterious girl in a baseball cap witnessed his incredible power and smiles. It looks like our boy has just been scouted by a very special organization. The secret is finally out. Hovering in plain sight with Mihue in his arms, our boy realizes the crowd isn't cheering for a hero. They're terrified of the monster with dragonfly wings. There's no time to explain. Sachin instinctively blasts off, realizing that flight feels terrifyingly natural to him now, confirming the dragonfly DNA coursing through his veins. But using his powers comes at a price. The withdrawal symptoms hit him midair, and he has to fight back a monstrous craving for meat just to keep flying. They manage to crash land into safety, but the physical pain is nothing compared to the panic. Sachin knows he's messed up big time. His face and wings are now all over the internet. This isn't just about him anymore. Someone has to step in to clean up this mess, because the world absolutely cannot know that insect humans exist. Fast forward a month, and the school is buzzing. The video of the human bug has gone viral, and students are gossiping about the monster, unaware he's sitting right next to them. With the rumors spreading like wildfire, our boy spends his days hiding inside his hoodie, terrified of being recognized. This isolation starts to bring back some painful memories. Flashback to 12 years ago. Even without wings, he was still an outcast. Being an orphan meant no money for gifts, and the other kids made sure he knew he didn't belong. Whether it's being labeled an orphan or a monster, the story remains the same. All he ever wanted was to fit in, but it seems the world is determined to keep him on the outside. Life as he knew it is over. Strangers treat him like a circus freak, grabbing at him in public just to see if the wings are real. Even his old friends are gossiping behind his back. Our boy pulls his hood down, feeling completely isolated and considering turning himself in just to make it stop. His social media is crashing, but he holds on to one hope. He saved Mihue, so surely she, of all people, will understand and stand by him. He sneaks into her hospital room expecting a warm reunion. Instead of gratitude, he's met with pure terror and a scream that shatters his heart. Desperate, he tries to explain it to him, but she's too traumatized. She begs him to leave and never come back, looking at him like a monster. That word monster echoes in his head. Walking away, he checks his phone one last time, watching the last of his social connection disappear. Back home, the despair turns into self-hatred. Blaming everything on his insect features, our boy grabs a pair of scissors, determined to cut the wings off himself. But it's no use. The scissors drop to the floor, and unable to escape his own body, he collapses in the corner, sobbing in total defeat. Every second is pure agony. Our boy is curled up on the floor, not just broken physically, but crushed by the pathetic reality of what he's become. Looking at the bustling city and nature's social groups, the realization hits hard. There is no place in this world for a monster like him. Desperate for peace, he steps off the ledge. But in a cruel twist of fate, his insect instincts kick in, refusing to let him die even when he wants it most. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the wind. A mysterious girl is hanging casually off the wall, and instead of screaming, she's actually admiring his wings. Our guy is completely bewildered by this wall-crawling stranger. But then she drops a bombshell that freezes him in his tracks, a way to become human again. That one sentence shatters his world. After landing in the stairwell, he's still reeling, but desperation drives him to ask the only question that matters. How? She adjusts her cap and points to a bus waiting outside. If he wants answers, he needs to pass an interview at her school, where a certain professor can explain everything. Looking back at his lowest moment, our boy remembers standing on that ledge, ready to end it all. It was the promise of not being alone that pulled him back from the edge. Even though he doesn't fully trust her yet, our boy has nowhere else to go. He's committed to this ride into the unknown, putting his fate in her hands. To answer his questions, Eugene pulls out a can of jungle juice. This isn't just bug spray. It's the source of their nightmare, a formula that fuses insect DNA with the human body. The mechanics are horrifyingly simple. Whatever bug you kill with it, you become. Whether it's mantis blades or dragonfly wings, the predator transforms into the prey. Who creates such a thing? And why is it not on the news? Our boy frantically searches online, but it's like a massive conspiracy has wiped all evidence from the face of the earth. We deleted the evidence. Huijian's casual admission leaves him stunned. Before he can ask more, they arrive at a secret entrance hidden deep inside a mountain tunnel. As the heavy blast doors open, our boy can't believe his eyes. Hidden completely behind the mountains is a massive, modern university campus nest. Walking inside, our boy's heart starts racing. Everywhere he looks, there are hybrids just like him. This isn't just a school, it's a sanctuary for their kind. But this is no paradise. Before he can even settle in, he's cornered by some aggressive locals. The guy with the stun baton clearly isn't here to welcome the new student. The story cuts to the shadows, where the ruthless organization Pet Shop is purging failed experiments. It seems our boy has already caught the attention of some very dangerous people. Back to our boy, who is completely shell-shocked. He's just arrived at the academy, only to find the sky filled with people openly using their insect abilities. This place is called Nest, a supposed haven for outcasts like him. But seeing so many mutants living openly makes our guy feel exposed, and his first instinct is to run. With a push from his guide, he forces himself to take a look around. Seeing everyone living their lives without shame is a massive culture shock for someone who's spent his life hiding. Sudden buzzing triggers his reflexes, and he takes a swing only to find an eccentric old man sitting there. To make things weirder, the old guy just casually snacks on the bug he just caught. Watching someone eat a bug raw freaks our boy out, but he doesn't have much choice. When the old man demands to see his ability, he nervously reveals the dragonfly wings he usually keeps hidden. Turns out the weird old man knows his stuff. He immediately recognizes the powerful dragonfly wings, noting how impressive it is that they can be folded away so neatly underneath his clothes. With no other choice, our boy grits his teeth and reveals his secret. As the translucent wings stretch out, traumatic memories of being branded a monster come flooding back. But there is no sympathy to be found here. A terrifying, shirtless instructor stares him down, openly mocking his hesitation and calling him useless right to his face. Thankfully, Eugene steers him towards a friendlier face. Professor Doheinma welcomes him with a warm handshake, easing the tension just as our boy felt like he was about to pass out. Skipping the small talk, Professor Ma fires up a holographic display. Our boy braces for horror, but instead, he's confused to see footage of a seemingly normal graduation ceremony. But things take a weird turn fast. The top graduate in the video downs a glass of green liquid and immediately starts heaving violently, as if purging something from their body. Our boy watches in absolute shock. After the violent reaction subsides, the students' insect traits completely fall away, leaving them fully human once again. This is Cinderella. Holding up the glowing vial, the professor explains that this formula targets the insect DNA directly. It is the miracle cure our boy has been desperate for. But there is a catch. The supply is incredibly limited. If he wants the cure, he has to enroll in Nest and fight his way to become the absolute top graduate of the academy. In this school of insect humans, the cure Cinderella is only granted to the top graduate. While explaining this harsh rule, the guide teases our boy, suggesting he could just give up and live a comfortable life here instead. But our guy isn't one to back down from an academic challenge. Adjusting his glasses with newfound confidence, he declares that he can handle the coursework and demands to be transferred immediately. Cutting to the campus, it looks like a typical university at first glance, except for the insect hybrids flying overhead. But before our boy can enjoy the view, he realizes he's walked straight into every student's nightmare: registration day. Forced to pick an elective, our boy scans the list and spots Professor Ma's course. It looks professional enough, until he sees the dreaded words group assignments, instantly regretting his life choices. Even stranger, instead of the usual online click war for classes, students here have to physically run to register on campus. This primitive, chaotic method leaves our modern college boy completely baffled. Before he can even finish complaining, chaos erupts. A girl with wings dive bombs another student right in front of him, smashing him into the ground. Our boy can only stare in shock at the brutality. While our boy freaks out about the public brawl, his guide acts like it's just another Tuesday. Clearly, violence is part of the curriculum here, and surviving school life is going to be harder than he thought. The semester has barely started, and the campus is already a war zone. Seeing students getting crushed like bugs, our boy realizes this place is pure survival of the fittest. Even the class president is a monster. Watching this display of power, our boy breaks into a cold sweat, wondering how on earth he's going to survive college life here. The scene shifts to the computer lab, where the tension is just as high. Everyone is locked in, waiting for course registration to open, and the air is thick with anticipation. Our boy has a clear target: Professor Ma's class. He needs to block out the chaotic noise around him and focus solely on securing that spot. Meanwhile, the professors are discussing the new transfer student. Given his hesitation, they don't seem too optimistic about his chances of surviving the brutal system. Professor G is particularly skeptical. Remembering how much our boy hates his own insect abilities, he's convinced Shunned doesn't stand a chance in the upcoming chaos. The moment registration opens, all hell breaks loose. It's not just clicking buttons. Students are literally using their powers to physically fight for their classes. Our boy is left stunned as everyone vanishes in a blur of motion. In this school, you don't just sign up for opportunities, you have to hunt them down like a predator. Outside, it looks like an apocalypse with students scrambling wildly under the motto, "Only the strong survive." Watching from the window, our boy is completely bewildered by this sudden chaos. While he's standing there confused, a reflection appears in the window. This guy with antennae notices our boy's panic and offers to explain what's actually going on. As they head into the woods, the new friend explains the brutal system. Professors hand out USB drives to the first 16 students. If you're late, you don't get a class. The antennae guy is aiming for Professor Ma's class with dreams of becoming valedictorian. They part ways with some encouragement, leaving our boy relieved to have met someone actually nice. Left alone again, our boy realizes he's already way behind. Needing to find his bearings fast, he spreads his dragonfly wings and takes to the sky for a better view. From high above, his enhanced vision kicks in immediately. He spots red flags scattered throughout the forest, marking exactly where the professors are waiting. But it's worse than he thought. Down below, students are violently attacking each other just to thin out the competition. It's not a race, it's a full-blown battle royale. The forest is total chaos with everyone fighting for a spot. But our boy isn't here to brawl. Utilizing his high-speed flight, he scans the area from above, looking for Professor Ma's flag to bypass the mayhem. He spots the target amidst the confusion and dives straight for it without hesitation. This kind of reckless, high-speed descent is exactly what he needs to make up for lost time. With a heavy thud, he crash lands. It's not graceful, and his eyes are burning from the wind speed, but seeing the relaxed Professor Ma in front of him confirms that his gamble paid off. Professor Ma sees right through the plan, impressed that Shunned used his dragonfly speed to overcome the late start. Acknowledging the strategy, he hands over the crucial registration USB without any hassle. The professor tells him he just needs to plug it in at the lab to finish registration. Clutching his prize, our boy walks away feeling confident, thinking the hard part is over while others are still fighting. But naturally, it's a trap. As soon as the drives are handed out, Professor Ma smiles and hits send on a mass text. The race isn't over. The real battle royale is just beginning. Our boy's phone buzzes violently, revealing a horrific notification. Everyone holding a USB is now a marked target for the rest of the students. His prize just became a target on his back. The message ripples through the forest, changing everything. Students who missed out on the flags now realize they have a second chance. Simply hunt down the USB holders. The predators are waking up. Shunned looks up in horror to find the trees filled with glowing red eyes staring right at him. Before he can even react to being surrounded, a brutal, unseen attack knocks him straight into the dirt. What was supposed to be course registration instantly turns into a battle royale. Heavy hitters are smashing craters into the ground, and before our boy can react, a longhorned beetle guy charges straight at him. Our boy tries to bail, but a whipped spider guy ambushes him for his USB. Everywhere he looks, insect humans are tearing each other apart in a frenzy to secure their credits. What kind of sick registration system is this? Our boy curses the insanity as he scrambles for safety, spotting a hollow tree trunk that looks like a good place to hide. He dives into the hideout with an antenna guy he met earlier. As the chaos subsides outside, our naive boy thanks his companion, thinking he's lucky to have found a trustworthy ally. But the gratitude is cut short when the guy suddenly stings his forehead. Turns out he's a honeybee type, and that jab just pumped our boy full of paralyzing venom. The guy instantly drops the act, snatching the USB our boy fought so hard for. We're all rivals here, you moron. Only an idiot would think anyone would actually help them. Prize in hand, the bee guy spreads his wings and takes off, dropping a condescending, "Try harder next year," as he leaves our paralyzed boy in the dust. His body is numb, but the fear of never becoming human again overrides the paralysis. Fueled by sheer desperation, our boy forces himself up and sprints after the thief. The enemy is clearly rattled by this sudden burst of speed. But our boy isn't giving him a break. His predatory instincts kick in, and those dragonfly eyes lock onto the target with terrifying precision. Remember, dragonflies are nature's most efficient hunters, with a 95% success rate. With 360-degree vision from thousands of compound lenses, every tiny movement the enemy makes is calculated. Running is simply not an option. Prediction confirmed. Just when the guy thinks he's slipped away, our boy cuts off his escape route and lands a massive hit. Like the textbooks say, once a dragonfly locks on, the prey is finished. Meanwhile, back at the dorms, Eugene wraps up her registration, but the tension is high. The whole reason our boy is fighting out there is for that USB drive. If he doesn't get that data back before the deadline, his semester is over before it starts. Back to the fight. That punch felt good, but the impact sent the USB flying. Watching his only ticket to enrollment freefall into the abyss, our boy panics, abandoning the fight to dive desperately after it. He's inches away from grabbing it when a hand swoops in and snatches the USB right out of the air. Hearing the thief mock him from above, our boy is absolutely furious and ready to tear the guy apart, but he realizes something is wrong. The guy he punched isn't stabilizing his flight. He's falling like a rock, completely unconscious. Panic sets in. Did one punch knock him out cold? A fall from this height is going to be fatal. The girl with the USB is getting away, but our boy faces a split-second moral dilemma. His attacker is plummeting to his death, and even though the guy asked for it, Sachin hesitates to leave him behind. Conscience wins over logic. Sachin dives at full speed, catching the falling student just in time. He saves his enemy, deciding it would be inhumane to let him die, even if it costs him his own registration. Having deposited the attacker safely on a branch, reality hits hard. The thief is long gone, he's exhausted, and his only hope now is to miraculously find another USB drive lying around somewhere. But things go from bad to worse. The venom from the earlier fight kicks in, causing his flight to fail completely. He crashes hard into the forest floor, paralyzed and wondering if he's actually going to die here. Meanwhile, the girl who stole the USB isn't having an easy time either. She's struggling to keep her composure, fighting off some kind of internal shock or panic. Just as Sachin thinks it's the end, a shadow looms over him. It's the snacking old man from the woods, looking down with pure disappointment. He orders Sachin to get up, snapping him out of his daze. The old man offers zero sympathy. He checks his watch and drops the bomb. 5 minutes left, 0 USBs remaining. He casually tells Sachin to try again next year, treating the whole situation as a done deal. Desperate, Sachin tries to justify his failure: the ambush, the theft, the poison. But the professor shuts him down cold, asking sarcastically if he expects special treatment just because his sob story is particularly pathetic. Our boy looks lost, facing the brutal reality of the jungle, while the cold voice from the monitoring drone reminds him that only strength matters here. Professor G doesn't mince words, bluntly explaining that this school is full of living weapons. If our boy wants safety, he should pack up and head to the civilian shelter. Ending his lecture, the professor tosses a paper bag at him, dismissively ordering him to recycle it, as if taking out the trash is all our boy is good for right now. As the professor walks away, our boy spirals into self-doubt. Should he have let that student fall just to secure his registration? The moment he thinks it, he feels disgusted with himself. Overwhelmed by frustration, He screams at the sky. He angrily crumples the paper bag the professor gave him, feeling like his life is just as worthless as this piece of trash. But just as he's about to toss it, a red glow comes from inside the bag. He opens it to find the very last registration USB. Now he only has 5 minutes left on the clock. Meanwhile, Professor Ma catches up with the stern Professor G. He's confused why the old man suddenly decided to help our boy out, considering it goes against his usual strict nature. Professor G just grunts, claiming he wants to personally beat some sense into the kid. Back in the woods, our boy is sprinting for his life, determined to seize this last chance. Our boy Suchin is pushing his speed to the limit, sweating bullets. He knows he's running out of time, but flying this fast is blinding him, and he's terrified of botching the landing again. Quick thinking saves the day. He slaps on a pair of goggles to shield his eyes. With the wind out of his face, and his dragonfly vision locking in, he finally unleashes his full speed. Meanwhile, a group of bullies is lying in wait down in the forest. They figure it's easier to ambush people here than do the actual work, blissfully unaware of what's coming. Spotting a target, the leader reveals his monstrous insect form, ready to pounce. But his grin fades instantly when he realizes the incoming object is moving way too fast to be human. Before they can even react, Haizong and Huijin tear through the scene. The sheer force of their movement sends the ambush leader tumbling, leaving him face-planted in the dirt wondering what just hit him. Doa finishes the job, casually stepping on a thug's head. She doesn't just beat them, she insults them, reminding these background characters that fighting near the buildings is against the rules. Huijin sighs at her phone. She's only here because Professor G ordered her to babysit the new transfer student. She might be complaining, but she's still making sure our boy doesn't get himself killed. Meanwhile, Suchin comes crashing into the room like a missile. It's not the most graceful entrance, but he made it inside just in time, impressing everyone with his frantic speed. It turns out this entire life or death race wasn't to save the world, it was to register for classes. Suchin slams the enter key, and seeing registration complete on the screen gives him a bigger rush than the flying ever did. Managing to register just seconds before the deadline, our boy collapses in his chair, exhausted but determined to chase that top rank no matter the cost. Barely getting a moment to breathe, a notification pops up demanding his immediate presence at orientation, forcing our boy to rush out into the night. He gets tackled by security the moment he arrives. They demand an ID card he hasn't even received yet, leaving our boy in a tight spot. Just in time, Huijin steps in with his new ID card. As they walk to class, her encouragement helps calm our boy's nerves about the tough path ahead. Clutching his new ID, our boy's confidence returns. His determination to ace even the hardest courses brings a genuine smile to Huijin's face. The moment they step into the lecture hall, the atmosphere shifts. Whispers erupt everywhere. It seems our boy's viral transformation video has made him an unwanted celebrity. Huijin snaps him back to reality with a punch, reminding him that his fame was actually a month-long nightmare of media manipulation they had to perform to cover up his identity. As Huijin calmly mentions deleting the evidence, our boy finally realizes why the recent scandal vanished so quickly. It turns out his friends were quietly protecting him behind the scenes all along. Huijin even steps in to silence the loudmouths for our boy. She gently reassures him that everyone knows he acted out of kindness, reminding him that he doesn't have to carry the guilt alone. Moved by Huijin's blunt but sincere kindness, our boy can't help but blush. Watching her walk away, he feels the weight of their friendship and finally finds some much-needed peace of mind. However, the peace is short-lived as an arrogant newcomer enters the scene. Slumping in his seat with a sneer, he clearly looks down on everyone and has zero respect for the Academy's rules. Just as everyone gets annoyed, the arrogant guy decides to make a scene. He slams his fist into the ground with a violent outburst, using the shockwave to demand everyone's attention and spark a confrontation. He shamelessly announces his plan to become the valedictorian, treating his classmates as nothing more than stepping stones for his ambition. His outrageous speech leaves the entire room in stunned silence. Desperate for the Cinderella cure, the red-haired bully starts robbing his peers. He uses violence to force them to hand over their student IDs, turning the classroom into a scene of absolute chaos. Unable to stand the bullying any longer, our boy's temper finally snaps. He lunges forward with a roar, ready to show this arrogant jerk exactly why you shouldn't mess with his classmates. Amidst the chaotic struggle, a red-haired man swings his bat with brutal force. It seems the previous clash was intense, with everyone fighting desperately for their IDs. Waking up in searing pain, our boy finds himself in the health center. With blood on his forehead and vision blurred, he realizes he barely survived the encounter. Hui-Jin explains she found them bleeding out and brought them in for treatment. But before our boy can even say thanks, he realizes with horror that his ID is gone. Hui-Jin calmly reassures him, promising to get replacement IDs right away. Watching her leave, our boy feels a sense of gratitude, touched by her kindness and reliability. This feeling of being cared for reminds our boy of his old crush, Mihue. As he reminisces, Haizan finally wakes up in the next bed, looking like a mummy. After hearing the story, Haizan calls our boy a complete moron. He bluntly points out that there's no way official IDs could be reissued in just a single day. The realization hits our boy like a ton of bricks. If getting a replacement is impossible, then Hui-Jin didn't go to an office, she went after the thieves. Hui-Jin has already tracked down the enemies by the lake. Facing them alone, she gives a cold ultimatum: give the IDs back nicely, or things get ugly. In the shadows of the forest, the red-haired guy smugly destroys the IDs. It turns out this was all a trap designed to lure Hui-Jin Park right where he wanted her. Though Hui-Jin uses her superior combat skills to strike back, the enemies are prepared. Surrounded by several opponents, she finds herself in a desperate situation. The red-haired villain is as skilled as he is cunning, pushing the fight toward the lake. He mocks Hui-Jin, claiming her top rank won't save her from his ambush. Suddenly, the villain reveals his insect nature, the giant water bug. As the top predator of the aquatic world, he launches a lethal assault on Hui-Jin in the water. With a twisted expression, he admits his motive. By killing the top student here, he can take her place, and no one will ever suspect this accidental drowning. The cronies on the shore cheer for Hui-Jin's slow death, but their celebration is cut short when a massive explosion tears through the scene, changing everything. Just in time, our boy Sachin descends with his dragonfly wings flared. Enraged by his friend's treatment, he delivers a powerful, righteous punch to the villain's face. On a lake under the pouring rain, the tension is suffocating. Our boy is surrounded by a hostile crowd, their mocking words making it clear they have no intention of letting him go. Facing a swift assault, our boy instantly activates his compound vision. With his enhanced dynamic sight, the enemy's movement slowed down, giving him the chance to predict and counter. The battle reaches a fever pitch, but the enemy is no pushover. Seeing our boy sent flying by a powerful blow, Hui-Jin calls out in panic, desperate for him to keep his distance. The environment is a massive disadvantage for our boy. A giant aquatic insect monster is lurking beneath the surface, ready to drag him into a fatal underwater struggle. The villain mocks them by waving the stolen student IDs. Not wanting her friends to suffer, Hui-Jin tries to take the blame and urges the others to flee while she handles the mess. Despite Hui-Jin's pleas to leave, our boy's gaze only grows firmer. He flatly refuses to abandon his friend, bracing his injured body for another round of combat. Seeing Hui-Jin's guilt, our boy gently reminds her of the promise she once made. She was the one who told him he wouldn't be alone anymore, and now he's returning the favor. At the critical moment, reliable backup finally arrives. A familiar face grabs the enemy by the collar, signaling that the real counterattack has only just begun. Haizan Cha recovered faster than anyone expected. Using the thorny power of his katy-did legs, he delivers a crushing kick that sends the enemy flying backward. As the chaos intensifies, our boy dives into the fray. His goal is clear: snatch back the stolen IDs and put an end to the enemy's little game. Facing a fierce counterattack, our boy just smirks. In this open water area, the dragonfly's superior agility makes him a ghost that the enemy can't even touch. The red-haired guy is losing it, realizing his opponent isn't flying in straight lines. Before he can track the movement, Sachin uses the water surface to boost his speed once more. If you're going to strike, make it count. Our boy combines dragonfly speed with his full body weight, executing a high-altitude dive that carries unstoppable momentum. A heavy punch lands flush on the red-haired guy's face. Even with the water trying to cushion the blow, the impact leaves him bloodied and completely dazed. With his teammates struggling, the dazed red-haired guy actually tries to talk his way out. But our boy knows he's just stalling for time, waiting for a chance to strike back. As expected, he immediately turns his aggression toward the restrained Hui-Jin. Seeing this, our boy's expression turns ice cold. He won't let anyone hurt his friends. Think the water gives you an advantage? Then let's take you out of it. Sachin locks his weapon around the guy's neck and drags him upward, stripping away his home field edge. In this moment, it's over. Our boy drops from the sky with overwhelming force, declaring that this turf belongs to him now as he crushes the enemy's final defense. Our boy strikes fast, snatching back the stolen ID cards. Looking at the enemy's obsession with power, he asks a chilling question: What's the point of being human if you've lost your humanity? The crisis is over, but Hui-Jin is still drowning in guilt. To save her feelings, our boy decides to keep their secret, heading back to the academy as if nothing happened. Back in his dorm, our boy unpacks his new nest jacket. In this secret academy for insect humans, his once cold and lonely life is finally starting to see some light. Before he can settle in, his energetic roommate Haizong ambushes him with a friendly but firm shoulder grab. He's loud and intense, but he clearly respects our boy's skills. Just then, Hui-Jin and the others burst in with snacks and drinks. Seeing their welcoming smiles, our boy is caught off guard, but he can't help feeling a sense of belonging. The lively party helps our boy forget the recent fighting. For the first time since exposing his wings, he feels truly happy, realizing he might have finally found a real home. Elsewhere, the failed red-haired attacker pleads for his life. But in his organization, failure is fatal. Those who can't hunt are deemed extinct and cast aside. Without a shred of mercy, the mysterious figure strikes. A violent surge of power swallows the failed minion, ending his story right there in the dark rain. Meanwhile, on Black Island, a purple-haired woman indifferently licks the blood from her hand. She scoffs at her red-haired subordinate lying on the ground, missing an arm, saying he couldn't even handle a few new students despite his strength. But she tells him not to worry, as they've finally found what they were looking for. The scene shifts to the next day, where the atmosphere is heavy in Nest University's Practical Combat for Insects class. Our boy, Jang Suchun, stands in the classroom, nervous about his first day of practical combat training, clenching his fists as he wonders what awaits him. A helmeted, black-haired classmate tries to reassure him, saying the first class will likely just be a short test, and that she'll help him out. Hearing this, Suchun finally relaxes a little, wiping his sweat and feeling that he might have been worrying for no reason. Right then, the muscular, white-haired and bearded Professor G strides into the room. He tells the students to listen up, announcing that today's test scores will count towards their final grade, as he activates a roaring, demon-faced vibrating device. Then, he takes it a step further by starting up his chainsaw axe, its roar filling the air. He warns them in a cold tone that if they don't perform well, they could die. His announcement shocks the entire class into stunned silence, especially our guy, who breaks out in a cold sweat again. Next second, the so-called test officially begins. On the open training grounds, the professor himself transforms into a mad hunter, attacking a group of panicked students in track suits with his roaring chainsaw axe. The situation instantly descends into chaos and terror. Sprinting for his life and panting heavily, Suchun shouts in desperation, "What the hell are we doing? And who is that crazy old man?" The black-haired girl, Park Hui-Jin, yells back at him while running at high speed, explaining that the man is Professor Jun-ji, one of the main professors in their department. She continues to explain that this Practical Combat for Insects is a required course that teaches them how to fight using their insect abilities. It's up to them to defend themselves. Suchun recalls the praying mantis attack at the movie theater, his gaze hardening as he understands the grim necessity behind this brutal lesson. As Suchun catches his breath, the professor's cold voice rings out again. He reiterates that insect abilities are weapons, and learning to fight with control is the purpose of Nest, the only way they will survive. On this chaotic battlefield, the first lesson in survival has just begun. To prove their worth, Professor G throws the group into a brutal game of hide-and-seek. With his chainsaw axe roaring, one mistake means instant failure, leaving our boy and the others visibly shaken. As our boy sprints for his life, he questions the point of this training. Memories of his past helplessness resurface, threatening to break his focus and slow his frantic escape from the professor. Haizong is pushed to his limit, shocked by the old man's incredible speed. As the deadly attack closes in, the sheer panic on his face shows just how high the stakes are in this test. In the heat of the moment, our boy taps into his dragonfly instincts. Using his compound vision, he analyzes the chainsaw's lethal trajectory, dodging the blades with a precision that leaves the professor stunned. Professor G realizes that the boy who once hated his wings has finally grown into them. Our boy's movements are no longer clumsy. He is becoming a natural at using his insect abilities to survive. When our boy briefly loses focus, Professor G strikes. Luckily, Hui-Jin reacts instantly, pinning him to the ground to shield him from the blow, reminding him that there's no time for daydreaming during a hunt. The chaos continues as the other students showcase their unique skills to evade the professor. Despite his harsh words and constant pressure, the students are proving they won't go down without a fight. Using a smoke screen for cover, the trio pushes through their exhaustion. By staying together and keeping quiet, they hope to finally outmaneuver the professor and complete this grueling survival course. Deep within the underground isolation sector, a mysterious woman stalks past fallen guards. She approaches the chained Junhyang, hinting that while the students train, a far more dangerous threat is already moving inside Nest. A black-haired woman stands before a dim cell, feigning sympathy for the creature huddled inside. She tries to use a student ID to open the door, but it's clear this facade won't work. Turns out, she had mind-controlled an unsuspecting student who was excitedly holding a stolen student ID. After some sweet talk, rewards, the student suddenly snapped out of it, confusedly wondering, how did I get here, and why did I steal the professor's security pass? He couldn't fathom what had happened to him, feeling utterly disoriented and lacking any memory of the events. Just as the student was terrified, the black-haired woman successfully opened the security door. However, what emerged from behind it was a monstrous insect human with terrifying wings and sharp teeth, exuding a beastly killing intent. "You smell tasty!" As both fell into terror, the black-haired woman revealed a sinister smile. She looked at the newly emerged insect human as if admiring a masterpiece, proudly stating, My, you're a true insect, just as the boss described." No sooner had she spoken than the black-haired woman unleashed her horrifying insect form, growing massive wings and pouncing on them like a predator. She commanded the monster to devour the manipulated student, while she herself ruthlessly enjoyed the feast, blood splattering everywhere in a gruesome scene. A satisfied smile played on her lips as she savored the blood, marveling, "How fascinating! Even as insects, their blood still runs red." Above the city, birds circle. Yet, even in broad daylight, dark experiments and hunts never cease. For the pet shop, the blood of insect humans is their most captivating experimental material. The scene shifts, and our boy and his partners are utterly breathless, having run for over an hour in the forest. Facing this bizarre test, everyone complained relentlessly, lamenting their aching bodies. On the other side, Professor G was far from gentle. Wielding his massive axe, he dragged and caught other students like prey. Our boy watched his classmates being mercilessly thrown by the professor, a dark premonition rising within him. This wasn't a college course, it was a hellish boot camp. Our boy squatted on the ground, steam practically rising from his head, cursing himself for missing Professor Ma's class. His partner encouraged him to hang in there for just one more hour until the class ended. In the dim forest, students are whispering about Professor G's brutal teaching style. Their complaints are cut short as a terrifying presence approaches, forcing them to hide and hold their breath. A student sprains her ankle while fleeing, and her peers beg for help. But Professor G remains cold, stating that in reality, you either run for your life or you die where you stand. The professor doesn't stop at threats. He swings his massive axe directly at the terrified students. With a deafening roar, the blade crashes down, sending the group into a total panic. Seeing things go too far, our boy finally steps in, shouting for the professor to stop this madness. To him, this is just a training session, and the instructor has clearly crossed the line. The professor counters with his saw axe, warning that in a real battle against predators, such naive complaints only lead to death. Survival is the only rule that matters. To save his classmates' futures, our boy takes the burden upon himself. He strikes a deal. If he can land a single hit on the professor within an hour, everyone passes. The stakes couldn't be higher. The professor warns our boy to focus on his own survival. Meanwhile, an uninvited guest lurks in the shadows, catching the scent of the dragonfly and closing in with a sinister grin. This mysterious figure is clearly hunting our boy, his eyes wild with predatory hunger as he drools in anticipation. The training isn't over, but real danger has already arrived. To save his friends from expulsion, our boy gives it everything he's got. He only needs to land one hit on Professor G for everyone to pass, and he's charging and thinking it'll be a piece of cake. Reality hits hard when his full-force punch misses by a mile. Professor G doesn't hold back, mocking our boy's sluggish movements as if he's dancing, telling him he couldn't even catch a bug at this rate. Watching our boy struggle, the teammates are on edge, fearing they're about to be kicked out. However, some notice that the fire in his eyes hasn't faded yet. There's still one more chance. Suddenly, our boy unconsciously triggers his compound vision, locking onto the professor like a predator. But before he can act, the professor vanishes and slams him into the dirt with terrifying speed. The teammates are horrified by the impact as our boy lies trembling on the ground. Facing the professor's overwhelming pressure, he realizes the gap in their power is more like a vast, hopeless abyss. The professor finally reveals he's also an insect human. Because his body can no longer handle the side effects at his age, he relies on weapons. That eerie mark on his palm suggests a hidden, darker power. With the roar of his chainsaw, Professor G points out that our boy theoretically has the potential to win. The issue isn't a lack of strength, but that he hasn't learned to fight like a true insect human yet. Mid-sentence, the professor tosses something at him, sending our boy into a frantic panic until he realizes it's just a dragonfly figurine. This sudden test leaves him completely stunned and vibrating with fear. Professor G delivers a stern lecture, warning that hating one's own insect nature limits their potential. He emphasizes that understanding biological traits is the only way to truly master their powers. Staring at the dragonfly, our boy struggles with his self-loathing. He's always viewed his transformation as becoming a monster, but the professor's words force him to face the reality he's been avoiding. Suddenly, a chilling round of applause breaks the silence. Professor G's expression shifts from stern to defensive, sensing a powerful and dangerous presence that has managed to sneak up on them. A mysterious woman with purple hair appears, mockingly praising Professor G's teaching methods. Her unexpected arrival instantly sends a wave of dread through the students as the atmosphere turns icy. Without warning, the woman strikes with brutal force, sending a classmate flying. The sudden violence leaves our boy paralyzed with shock, as the situation escalates faster than anyone can react. As a comrade rushes in to counterattack, they find the woman's movements are not just fast, but lethal. One clash is all it takes for poison to set in, leaving the attacker stunned and helpless. A wicked blade tears through the air as the woman gleefully restrains her victim. Her words are chillingly tender as she describes the students as mere snacks, revealing her monstrous nature. Watching the horror unfold, our boy is torn between panic and rage. Hearing her casually mention feeding a student to someone else, he realizes they are facing a predator of unparalleled cruelty. Professor G suddenly collapses in a pool of blood. The brutal sight instantly drags our boy back to a past trauma, filling him with that same familiar sense of helplessness. Shadows of the past loom as a terrifying beast reappears. Even Hui Jin is paralyzed with shock, realizing the enemy has become far more dangerous than before. After brutally wounding the professor, the villains casually prepare to leave. Looking at their arrogant faces, the critically injured professor is at his absolute limit. The purple-haired leader waves a mocking goodbye, as if this whole tragedy was just a minor game and the professor's life meant nothing at all. Hui Jin tries to rush forward in rage, but the professor grabs her arm. He sternly reminds them that school rules forbid students from fighting outsiders without permission. Rules, rules, and more rules. With Haizong in mortal danger, these cold regulations feel like a cage preventing them from doing what's right. Since losing the bet meant expulsion anyway, our boy reaches his breaking point. He shouts that he's done being a student, casting aside the rules that hold him back. His gray wings unfurl with a burst of fury and resolve. Taking to the sky, he refuses to let fear stop him again as he watches his friend being taken away. Remembering Haizong's genuine friendship, our boy's eyes burn with determination. This time, he'll break every rule necessary to save his friend. In this critical moment, our boy Suchin streaks through the sky, his eyes fixed on his target with a singular belief now. Everything rests on his shoulders. Meanwhile, Professor G battles an enemy, bleeding from a neck wound, yet he sternly lectures the student behind him, teaching a harsh lesson that in this world, survival is never guaranteed, and even the strongest insect has a natural enemy. Back on the battlefield, our boy Suchin, weapon in hand, fiercely confronts his enemy, but the foe reveals a chilling truth. The praying mantis is the dragonfly's natural predator, a stealthy hunter that instantly puts Suchin in grave danger. Just as expected, the mantis man sneered at Suchin's attack, having already anticipated our boy's intentions, rendering Suchin's surprise assault utterly ineffective. Though struck by his opponent's sharp limbs, our boy knows direct confrontation is risky. He decides to use his flight advantage to keep his distance, biding his time to deliver a fatal blow. The previous impact sent a jolt of pain through our boy, who swiftly flapped his wings to create distance, internally exclaiming, "What the hell?" To his horror, Suchin discovers his opponent's skin is rock hard, leaving his own left hand bloody and broken. It turns out the enemy had regained strength through feeding, making their exoskeleton impenetrable. The mantis man, getting cockier, gleefully declared our boy would be his snack for the road. Suchin's eyes reflected the enemy's ferocious assault, and he knew deep down that his current approach wouldn't work. As the mantis man lunged, our boy finally succumbed, collapsing in agony, blood seeping from his lips, his broken fingers a gruesome sight. Deep down, only a desperate cry remained. "I just can't!" Though Suchin's body and will were pushed to their limits, an unyielding cry echoed deep within him. "I'll die trying!" The mysterious golden-haired character coldly whispered, remarking on the difficulty of controlling these fierce carnivores, urging her companion to finish the battle before Nest reinforcements arrived. Just as Suchin's life hung by a thread, elsewhere, his comrade Haizong was startled awake by a voice calling his name from within a dream, where he vaguely heard someone angrily yelling, "If you can't do anything right, then get the hell out of my way," as if questioning some inner flaw. Seeing his teammate Haizong dazed and losing focus, our boy shouts at the top of his lungs, desperate to snap him back into reality. Paralyzed by venom, Haizong is completely defenseless. The villain in the purple helmet senses an opening and cold-bloodedly decides to finish him off. In the nick of time, our boy dives in recklessly, using his own body to crash into the enemy and deflect what would have been a fatal blow. Our boy holds the line, screaming for the others to run while he acts as a human shield. Even the villain is stunned by his selfless determination. It brings back memories of how our boy always helped others without expecting anything in return, even if he never received a simple thank you for his trouble. Back in the heat of battle, though his body is at its breaking point, our boy refuses to regret his choices. He knows saving lives is the right thing to do. Thankfully, Haizong finally regains control. He grabs our boy and vanishes in a green blur, escaping the ambush with incredible explosive speed. This is the true power of the Katydid's hind legs, a natural spring capable of propelling them 10 times their body length to safety. Mocked by a powerful foe, our boy and his teammates are in a tight spot. Despite taking a beating, Haizong keeps his snarky attitude. But just as the enemies think they've won, the red-eyed monster stops. He can still smell the lingering scent of their resolve nearby. Seeing that our boy has no intention of retreating, Haizong starts to panic. In the survival rules of Nest, running from an unbeatable enemy is the only logical choice. But our boy's gaze is fixed. He knows if they back down now, everything is over. Though battered and facing a life-threatening threat, our boy remembers his former, helpless self. He can't let this monster run wild, or more innocent people will suffer just like he did. This sense of duty gives him the strength to overcome his primal fear. Brute force isn't the answer, and our boy knows it. Since reinforcements are on the way, the goal now is to stall. He signals his partner, with a confident smirk. He's already cooked up a daring plan to turn the tables. On the other side of the forest, the team is desperately tending to the wounded, while a chilling sensation creeps in. The enemies they thought were gone never truly left. Instead, they're lurking in the shadows, watching every move. While the enemies brag about their next hunt, our boy uses his high-speed dragonfly wings to vanish and reappear behind them like a ghost. This surprise counterattack leaves the monster stunned. He never expected his prey to strike back so boldly. Using a hidden trap from his sleeve to bind the enemy, our boy lands a powerful kick. Despite the heavy impact, the monster quickly regains his footing with a sinister laugh, claiming this isn't nearly enough to hurt him. The real deathmatch has only just begun. The Mantis villain, facing a formidable foe, grew increasingly agitated. Despite his ferocious attacks, he struggled to penetrate his opponents' rock-hard skin. Exasperated, he arrogantly declared himself the apex predator, claiming no mere flying bug could ever defeat him. However, our boy was no ordinary flying bug. He quickly circled in the air, a clever battle plan already forming in his mind. According to his strategy, he would distract the Mantis villain while instructing Haizong to use his incredible leg speed to retrieve a crucial item. Meanwhile, the situation on the ground was dire. Professor G lay severely wounded, with Doa anxiously tending to him. Weakly, Professor G informed Doa that something important had been taken by the enemy. Just then, our boy, quick as a flash, darted through the air towards a weapon-like object. Seeing this, the Mantis villain roared, "My weapon!" Clearly, it was what he had just taken, and a crucial part of our boy's plan. Soon, Haizong's voice rang out. "Suchin! I got what you asked for!" With the backup he needed, our boy wasted no time. Grabbing the weapon Haizong handed him, he aimed at the Mantis villain and shouted, "Chop him up!" They say dragonflies can't beat mantises, but for insect humans, it's a different story. Our boy, armed with a weapon, unleashed a furious combo attack on the Mantis villain. After a flurry of blows, he successfully severed the Mantis villain's arm. The Mantis villain let out a heart-wrenching scream, flying backward in agony, his severed arm clearly visible. His allies gasped in shock, surprised that our boy had truly gone for the kill and sliced off his arm. However, the pain of his severed arm enraged the Mantis villain. He lunged furiously at our boy and his comrades, cursing the puny little punks for daring to hunt him, and launched an even more ferocious counterattack. Against the villain's savage assault, our boy was slammed by a heavy blow, his body sent hurtling backward by the immense force. Yet, as the villain reveled in his attack, he failed to notice metal fragments shattering around his head, hinting that our boy's earlier strike wasn't entirely in vain. The sparks of battle continued to fly. The tide of battle takes a turn for the worse as our boy's chainsaw is smashed to pieces. Disarmed and cornered, he's left vulnerable as the enemy prepares to finish the job. Just in the nick of time, Haizan steps in with a powerful kick that sends the enemy flying. With his comrade by his side, our boy finally has a fighting chance. In the cruel world of nature, a natural enemy is the ultimate predator. Their sheer instinct to kill acts as a brutal check to prevent any one species from growing too powerful. The enemy's power is simply overwhelming, pinning our boy to the ground once again. As the lethal fangs draw closer, he can feel the cold shadow of death looming over him. Just as his consciousness begins to fade, our boy lets out a desperate cry of defiance. A massive explosion suddenly rocks the area, shrouding the entire battlefield in chaos. As the smoke clears, a familiar figure stands protectively in front of our boy. It's Professor G. Seeing his mentor arrive, our boy's despair turns into pure shock. It turns out Professor G received emergency treatment and immediately tracked their footprints here. As long as he's breathing, he won't let his students die on his watch. Far from being intimidated, the enemy seems even more thrilled by the arrival of a stronger foe. He charges forward in a bloodthirsty frenzy, and the real life and death struggle begins. With a deafening roar, the professor unleashes the ultimate defense, the bombardier beetle's explosive mechanism. The massive shockwave sweeps the field, sending our boy flying before he can even react. As the smoke clears, the professor looks at our boy with a stern gaze. He reveals the truth. This is the complex, the true, raw power hidden within them that defines their existence. But this power comes with a price. Our boy is shocked to see the professor's hands trembling violently, covered in deep red scars, permanent damage from overusing his insect instincts. The professor warns that if he fails to master this power before losing control, it will consume him. Looking at that grim expression, our boy realizes his time to grow stronger is running out. The brutal battle finally ends, and we shift to the infirmary. Our boy and Haizong manage to survive, but they're now wrapped up like mummies, stuck staring at the ceiling in misery. Despite surviving, the escaped enemies weigh heavily on our boy's mind. Even bedridden, he spends his time studying Dragonfly traits on a tablet, desperate to unlock his own hidden potential. Late at night, the quiet ward is filled only with the sound of breathing as our boy finally sleeps. But in the shadows, a hostile gaze lingers, and the air grows thick with a sudden sense of danger. In the moonlit forest, a pink-haired girl runs for her life, only to be stopped by a mysterious woman with a chilling smile. As a giant beetle looms overhead, a darker conspiracy begins to unfold. A purple-haired character whispers manipulatively to a pink-haired youth, speaking of hypocrites and cage monsters, hinting at some dark truth. But suddenly, her hand violently grips the throat of another brown-haired character. Just as the brown-haired character's life hung in the balance, a golden figure flashed out with a powerful kick, sending the purple-haired character flying. Yet, even after being struck, her hand remained clamped around the throat, as intense impacts and explosions erupted. As if anticipating everything, the purple-haired character stands in the night forest, dismissively, shushing an unseen opponent. She reveals her intentional oversight of a stinger in his neck, exposing a long-planned scheme. The scene shifts to Professor G, his fist clenched around a black, carapace-like object, his body radiating fiery light. He roars, vowing to protect his students at all costs and crush the purple-haired characters. Wretched scheme. Confronted by Professor G's fury, the purple-haired character merely sneers, touching her lips with a finger. In a taunting tone, she reveals her name, Gayensen, the very traitor Professor G is determined to bring back to nest. Meanwhile, our boy Suchin, bruised, leans anxiously against a tree. He recalls following Haizong out of worry over his sleepwalking, now utterly bewildered by the strange events unfolding before him. Professor G, also injured, crouches down, his sharp gaze fixed on the student lying on the ground, demanding to know what exactly is happening. He looks back at Gaeon, his eyes filled with complex emotions, reflecting on the full 5 years that have passed since she left the academy. Our boy Suchin watches Gaeon in shock, realizing this evil woman was once a Nest student. Gaeon, with a scornful smirk, dismisses Professor G's greeting, provocatively stating he didn't come for small talk. Faced with Gaeon's provocation, Professor G's patience finally snaps. He irritably rubs the back of his head, roaring that if that's the case, then let's get right to it. No sooner had he spoken, a violent explosion ripped between them, the immense shockwave sending both Professor G and Gaeon flying. Professor G charges forward through the flames, determined to drag Gaeon back to the academy. Yet, Gaeon, like a phantom, easily dodges the assault, a mocking smirk playing on her lips, as if she had already foreseen his every move. The purple-haired woman before them was Gaeon Sin, the treacherous mole from the evil organization responsible for killing Nest employees and students. Facing Professor G's furious assault, she showed no fear, counterattacking with a brazen explosion that sent him flying, then mockingly laughing at his predicament. But Professor G wasn't finished. Roaring, "I'm just getting started," he gathered his energy and launched another fierce assault on Gaeon Sin. The powerful impact sent her flying, and she barely managed to regain her footing, sliding back with remarkable agility. Just as the two were locked in a fierce battle, Professor Ma arrived, halting the fight with a firm enough. He warned Gaeon Sin that Nest security would arrive any minute, urging her to cease her futile resistance. Professor G informed Professor Ma that Gaeon Sin had a boss behind her. To catch the real mastermind, it would be wiser to let her go for now and track her later, especially since Gaeon Sin had already caused too many casualties today. Gaeon Sin vanished with her sinister warning, and Nest's operatives finally arrived, beginning to contain the fires caused by Professor G's battle. Professor Ma, meanwhile, checked on Professor G with concern. Seeing Professor G's injured right arm, Professor Ma couldn't help but scold him for coming alone while hurt. Professor G lowered his head in apology. Professor Ma decided they should leave the rest to the arriving operatives and return to campus. However, before leaving, Professor Ma shifted the topic, meaningfully suggesting that Professor G should perhaps have a good talk with his current student, Suchin Jang. Then, he helped the injured and staggering Professor G away from the scene. With the immediate danger past, our boy watches his injured teammate being supported, his wings trembling slightly from exhaustion and a heavy heart. At that moment, Professor G reveals a shocking secret: that dangerous woman, Gaeon Sin, was once his student, and she's returned to destroy Nest. Professor G tries to use this secret as a bargaining chip, but our boy isn't intimidated. Instead, he firmly asks the professor to teach him how to master his combat instincts. Reflecting on his helplessness, our boy refuses to stand by while his friends are taken. To grow stronger, he decides to face his fear of being a bug head-on. Seeing the fire in the kid's eyes, Professor G smiles in approval. Since he has the resolve, the deal is struck, and the real training is about to begin. A few days later, Nest returns to its usual routine. The cafeteria is buzzing with students chatting over meals, as if the recent life-or-death crisis was just a dream. Though life goes on, research into insect humans never stops. Some students even participate in lab experiments to uncover the deeper powers within their genes. While enjoying lunch, our boy suddenly gets curious about Hui Jean. Despite seeing her antennae all the time, he realizes he still doesn't know what her actual insect type is. The atmosphere is tense as the group discusses abilities similar to a praying mantis. Our boy listens intently, clearly feeling the pressure of the raw power being described. Suddenly, a familiar sound breaks the silence as Hui Jean makes her cool return. The squad gathers in the dining hall, enjoying a meal, and some much-needed camaraderie amidst the banter. The conversation shifts to the upcoming group assignments. It's not just training. They might face real combat against dangerous insect humans. Our boy grips his drink, his expression turning serious. Thinking back to Professor G's harsh training, our boy realizes this mission is the perfect opportunity to test his growth and see just how much his insect instincts have evolved. The official group list is a dream come true for our boy. He's teamed up with Hui Jean Doa and Haizong. This powerhouse lineup has him feeling incredibly confident about their chances. Relieved to be with such reliable teammates, our boy relaxes with a drink. They share a lighthearted moment over coffee orders, a precious bit of peace before the upcoming storm. But the peace is short-lived. A few days later, amidst a violent thunderstorm, a staff member rushes into the gym to deliver an urgent, alarming report to Professor Ma. The tablet shows Group A's progress, but the news is devastating. One of their members died during the move. The shock of this sudden casualty leaves everyone completely stunned. Despite the grim news from afar, classes at Nest continue. The professor officially announces the start of their first off-campus assignment. The real test has finally begun for everyone. Our boy stares in shock at the spray can before him. This is jungle juice, the very pesticide that turned them all into insect humans with just a single spray. Despite the lack of marketing, this stuff was a hit with hikers. Its origins remain a mystery though, as the distributor went bankrupt, leaving the trail cold in Kan 1 province. It turns out the damage was contained within one province, which explains the secrecy. The professor explains that this spray is essential for mass-producing their cure, Cinderella. The mission is set. Find a single bottle of jungle juice in Kong 1 for an automatic A+. The class erupts in groans, knowing how rare these cans have become nowadays. After class, our boy and Hui Jin are feeling the pressure. Most cans were recovered long ago, and searching for this contraband now feels like looking for a needle in a haystack. Hui Jin is sweating with worry, but a light bulb suddenly goes off for our boy. He grabs her arm and starts running, remembering he might have hidden some cans back in middle school. If they find it, their grades are safe. Our boy leads Hui Jin to his old apartment, confident that if the stash is still there, they'll be at the top of the class. But as he swings the door open with a grin, his smile vanishes. The apartment is completely trashed, and it's clear they aren't the only ones looking for this treasure. Our boy is in a total panic, frantically tearing through drawers for his bug spray, but it's nowhere to be found. This was his best shot at getting the cure, and the realization that it's gone has him completely spiraling. Hui Jin tries to calm him down, but she acts strangely when our guy suggests checking her place. She quickly brushes it off, insisting they search the rest of the city instead. Distracted by his loss, he doesn't notice her odd behavior. The two spend hours scouring the city, checking every store and searching online, but they come up empty-handed. Slumping onto a bench with some drinks, our boy realizes that finding the cure is going to be much harder than he hoped. While they rest, Hui Jin suddenly drops a heavy question. Why is he so desperate to get rid of his wings? Is it all for that girl Mihui? The question catches our boy completely off guard, making him do a literal spit take. After nearly choking on his drink, our boy admits the truth. It's not just about a girl. He's desperate to be normal again. He misses his old life, and the simple freedom of not being treated like a monster in hiding. There's a hint of sadness in his eyes, as he recalls Mihui's fear. He doesn't blame her for calling him a monster after all. He knows how terrifying a human bug can look to a regular person. Despite the gloom, our boy takes a moment to sincerely thank Hui Jin. Looking back on the day they met on that rooftop, he knows that without her, his life would have ended. In this harsh new reality, their bond is only getting stronger. On a sun-drenched bench, our boy is having a rare heart-to-heart. He sincerely thanks his friend for giving him hope, a direct confession that leaves even the toughest ally blushing in the sweet atmosphere. The two reminisce about their normal lives before everything changed. Despite being a top student at Nest, our boy still yearns for his past self, a shared sentiment that subtly strengthens their bond. The peaceful moment is short-lived, as a sudden ringtone cuts through the air. On the other end, Haizong's voice is practically trembling with excitement. It sounds like he's stumbled upon a massive jackpot. Haizong discovered an old warehouse filled with leftover inventory from the Natural Life Company. If it's true, it means they could produce hundreds of Cinderellas. Our boy can hardly believe his ears. However, Hui Jin immediately senses something is off. How could they stumble upon resources that even Ness couldn't track down? This lucky break is starting to look like a deadly, calculated trap. Determined to check on their friends, our boy rushes Hui Jin to the scene. The abandoned building looms like a sleeping beast in the night, full of unknown danger, but they have no choice but to push forward. The warehouse interior is cold and eerie, blanketed in thick dust. As they search, a tipped-over box reveals its dark contents, specialized toxins meant for hunting insect humans. The truth here might be crueler than they imagined. Our boy thought he finally found the serum, but it was nothing more than a deadly trap. In a flash, Hui Jin is struck down right before his eyes, leaving him paralyzed with shock as her blood spills across the floor. Seeing his friend lying in a pool of blood, our guy's shock turns into pure cold rage. The villain mocks him, claiming he's finally found the prey he's been looking for, which only adds fuel to the fire burning in our boy's eyes. Consumed by fury, our boy spreads his wings and dives like a bolt of green lightning. Logic is gone. His only instinct now is to use every ounce of his power to tear this monster apart. In the middle of the chaos, memories of loss flood back to him. You never get used to saying goodbye, especially like this. Seeing the vibrant Hui Jin so still, our boy feels the crushing weight of failing to protect someone he cares about. Against this earwig-type monster with massive pincers, our boy's desperate assault is met with mockery. The villain warns him that he's just rushing to his death, closing in with those terrifying blades to finish him off. Shouting a curse, our boy throws a desperate punch, only to be met by an overwhelming counterforce. With a massive explosion of impact, he is sent flying backward, crashing violently under the villain's brute strength. Our boy managed to land a solid hit on the jaw, but the gap in power is devastating. The villain barely flinches, offering nothing but a mocking grin. To him, our boy's best effort was just a pathetic attempt. Facing an immovable monster, our boy is left in stunned silence. The villain's sneer of "nice try, kid" is the ultimate insult, as true despair begins to swallow him whole in this dark, enclosed space. A mysterious figure struggles painfully under the attack of a giant insect, his bleeding hands and sweaty brow revealing extreme agony. Yet, he exclaims, the opponent's skin is rock hard, wondering if this is the true power of an exoskeleton. Our boy was brutally slammed against the wall. As he struggled to his knees, his arrogant opponent crushed his supplies, scoffing that he was completely out of his league. The gigantic pincer-limbed creature followed with a fierce assault. Though thrown back, our boy's gaze remained firm, roaring defiantly, "You might be out of my league." Our boy was struck again, spitting blood. A mysterious female observer watched with an amused smirk, seemingly telling someone, "See? Good thing you came with me, wasn't it?" Despite his injuries, our boy roared and charged forward, unleashing a fierce punch. His fist, glowing with pink electricity, slammed into the giant insect's limb, vowing to destroy his enemy. The punch struck the villain's head, erupting in sparks. Yet, the purplish-gray-skinned villain merely curled a strange smile, nonchalantly admitting, "I have to admit, that one did sting a little," the villain finished nonchalantly, leaving our boy stunned. Looking at his bloodied fist, he thought in disbelief, "Damn, did that really do no damage at all?" Since his full power strike was useless, the situation worsened. The villain remained calm, directing the gigantic insect creature to unleash another fierce sweep, heading straight for our boy. Facing the deadly assault, our boy unleashed astonishing strength, gripping the giant insect's limb tightly, his eyes filled with desperate determination. This might do the trick. However, no miracle occurred. He was thrown back again, crashing heavily. Worse still, our boy discovered his wings were cracking and completely unable to move. What? Why now, all of a sudden? Our boy cried out in his mind, struggling to flap his wings. But the villain sneered, "Don't tell me you're done already?" The battle is heating up as our boy's ally gets blasted backward by a massive arthropod limb. Sparks fly everywhere as he's sent tumbling through the air, showing just how brutal the enemy's strength is. Our boy watches in disbelief as Hui-Jin charges forward despite her severe abdominal wound. Even the villain is caught off guard, wondering how she could possibly be back on her feet so quickly after such a devastating hit. Despite the heavy bleeding, Hui-Jin refuses to back down. While our boy shouts for her to be careful, she remains eerily calm, mentioning her personal complex as a sharp, determined glint flashes in her red eyes. Suddenly, the giant insect swings its massive tail, colliding head-on with Hui-Jin again. The sheer force of the impact sends our boy flying backward, as the scene is engulfed in a chaotic storm of energy and debris. Even after taking multiple hits from those whip-like limbs, Hui-Jin keeps her eyes locked on the enemy with a defiant smirk. She's determined to show them exactly what she's made of, displaying a level of resilience that's honestly terrifying. As the battle reaches a fever pitch, a bloodied Hui-Jin readies herself for a final stand. The screen then transitions to the title, signaling a shift back in time to reveal the hidden past of this resilient warrior. We flash back to Hui-Jin's high school days at 17. Even back then, she carried a cold demeanor, while petty classmates whispered behind her back, mockingly calling her a roach because of her humble living situation. Hui-Jin endures the constant mockery of classmates who snap photos and mask their cruelty with fake pity. She knows all too well that cheap sympathy is the ultimate insult, leaving her with no choice but to toughen up and face the world alone. On the phone screen, a girl with sharp eyes seems to be explaining something, then the scene shifts to a confident guy. He casually takes over, articulating a cold logic about how pity turns into prejudice, ultimately breeding disgust. As soon as the words fell, a black-haired boy fiercely lifted his leg and kicked another boy in school uniform flying, accompanied by the shocked cries of onlookers. However, the aggressor didn't care at all, disdainfully stating he had a habit of stomping out pests. Faced with the opponent's arrogance of calling people pests, Park Hui-Jin, though astonished, chose to endure for her brother. Because with her brother Jongjin Park by her side, she could be strong. And at this moment, the confident Jongjin Park called himself the neighborhood exterminator, as if he could solve all her troubles. Park Hui-Jin returned home, and as soon as she opened the door, she saw her brother Jongjin Park seemingly attacked by something, painfully slamming into the doorframe and screaming in terror. This sudden turn of events plunged Hui-Jin into immense shock and worry. Her brother quickly picked up the bug spray, only to find it was empty. They watched helplessly as the black, spiky insect scurried away, and the siblings could only anxiously cry out. What do we do? Despair filled the air as they faced their helpless situation. Exhausted, the siblings sat in their cluttered room, sighing at their lack of bug spray. Soon, their eyes turned to the phone, where they saw a miraculous bug killer advertised as, "One spray kills all bugs." Though it sounded a bit too good to be true, they still held a glimmer of hope. Park Hui-jin recalled their family cooped up in a tiny, dark, and damp semi-basement home, which was all they had. Yet, for her to go to college, her brother remained her faint but steadfast ray of hope. However, this hope was completely shattered after her brother Jong-jin Park passed away. He worked himself to death just for their survival. Poverty took his life, and it took away Park Hui-jin's only ray of light, leaving behind only endless sorrow. Park Hui-jin plunged into despair, wishing it was all just a bad dream. Just then, two students furtively pushed aside a partition, and something seemed to be scurrying inside. One of them remarked, "Our brother was the one who kicked my boyfriend," causing the other to exclaim, "Wait, that was her brother!" A mysterious black-haired woman, likely Hui-jin Park, is trapped, taunted by a voice that brings her friends. The scattered fragments and her pained expression hint at an inescapable nightmare she's enduring. This nightmare relentlessly torments her, as she's repeatedly struck by unknown forces, her body torn apart, screaming in agony. The deep-seated fear and powerlessness from poverty make it seem impossible for her to ever break free. The moment the power killer spray can hit the ground, the fear of being deemed a pest, of being killed with a single spray, instantly consumed her. She collapsed, clutching the deadly can. But pushed to the brink, her instincts fully awakened. Her desperate gaze was instantly replaced by fury, as she erupted with incredible power, charging at the threat with blood-red eyes, like a cornered beast. The shocking blow caught her opponent completely off guard. The man was violently thrown back, realizing with a jolt that this seemingly fragile girl possessed terrifying strength, far beyond his ability to contend with. The man was aghast, disbelief etched on his face. That last blow should have been fatal, yet the girl, despite such severe injuries, was now getting back up as if nothing had happened. Lying defeated moments ago, her bloodied hand now tremblingly rose. Such a deep wound, yet it healed instantly. The man was utterly stunned, watching the scene unfold with disbelief. Just then, our boy Suchin arrived. Seeing Hui-jin's bloodied hands, he anxiously asked about her condition. Hui-jin calmly replied, "I'm fine. I heal quick." Watching her wounds rapidly heal, Hui-jin's eyes were tearful yet held a hint of self-deprecation. Perhaps this quick healing ability was more like an inescapable cockroach fate for her. The battlefield is reaching a fever pitch. Pinched by a massive insect limb, the enemy sneers with malice, hurling insults and calling Hui-jin a stinking cockroach. Fueled by the hateful slurs, Hui-jin snaps. Her relentless assault is so overwhelming that even our boy can only watch in shock, feeling the suffocating pressure of her rage. Our boy is struggling to find his footing amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, the villain grows desperate. Hui-jin is moving far too fast for him to land even a single clean blow. Backed into a corner and suspended in midair, the enemy desperately hunts for an opening. In a flash, massive insect limbs sweep across the warehouse, turning it into a deadly arena. With a series of heavy impacts, Hui-jin stands firm, her hands stained with blood but her eyes cold. Just as victory seems certain, the enemy lets out a bone-chilling sneer. Disaster strikes? A calculated blow shatters their defense. Our boy watches in horror as Hui-jin collapses into a pool of blood, while the villain arrogantly declares her end. But at the height of the villain's triumph, a strange green current erupts. A blinding flash consumes the room. Is this a desperate counterattack, or has a far greater disaster just arrived? The battle intensified, and a fighter, likely our boy, suddenly unleashed dazzling green wings from his back. Meanwhile, the masked monster coldly mused about the transformation triggered after killing the roach girl, wondering if it meant there were other ways to evolve besides beating. Excited by this unconventional evolution, the masked monster roared and lunged at his prey, eager to personally discover what kind of evolution consuming different prey would bring. No sooner had he spoken than he charged forward, landing a devastating blow on our boy. A fierce shockwave erupted instantly, blurring everything around them. Despite the searing pain in his neck, our boy fiercely retaliated, pushing his opponent back with a powerful counterattack. The masked monster slumped to the ground in pain, his massive insected structure emerging from his back. He thought the blow should have incapacitated his opponent. Yet, his own distorted face and continuously mutating body hinted that things were not so simple. Just as the masked monster thought victory was assured, our boy charged again, his weapon glowing with a vibrant green light. The masked monster struggled in agony, realizing that these creatures, transformed by jungle juice, still retained their full intellect and reason. Facing our boy's fierce assault, the masked monster stomped his foot, his eyes gleaming with savagery. "Kill or be killed!" he snarled, even observing that our boy, driven by his powerful instincts, seemed to be slowly losing his humanity. The chilling declaration made our boy tremble internally, but he had no time to ponder. The masked monster attacked again from above, his massive insected tail whizzing through the air as our boy narrowly dodged the assault. In a critical moment, our boy swiftly counterattacked, slamming his weapon into the ground. A surge of green energy erupted, shaking the entire space as if to engulf all evil. The battle reaches a fever pitch. As the enemy dives in with a monstrous snarl, our boy moves like lightning, catching him completely off guard from behind. Beyond agile flight and compound vision, the Dragonfly possesses a terrifying weapon, mandibles designed to pulverize. Under this raw power, the once arrogant enemy can only scream in agony. This incredible power comes from the defense mechanism. Professor G once taught that while humans use reason to balance instinct, this mechanism is meant to shatter that equilibrium and unleash the inner beast. However, this power is a double-edged sword. If reason is swallowed by instinct, one falls into a state of uncontrollable madness. Looking at our boy's glowing eyes, it's clear he's crossed that dangerous line. The roles of predator and prey flip in an instant. Through the eyes of insect instinct, the formidable opponent is now nothing more than a victim. The villain finally realizes he's hunted the wrong prey. A rare, savage grin creeps across our boy's face as he loses himself in the thrill of the hunt. Even as the enemy begins to break and plead for mercy, the lethal onslaught shows no sign of stopping. Amidst the sickening sound of impact, our boy pins his foe to the ground in a mindless rage. Spattered blood marks the end of this one-sided slaughter, but where will this loss of self lead him next? With a powerful impact, an unknown black-haired character is brutally pinned down by giant insect-like structures. Strange energy spews from his mouth, and blood stains his neck and face, indicating an extremely cruel assault. He collapses in pain, green wing-like energy bursting from his back. Just then, the silver-haired breeder with the whip appears. Looking at his fallen hound, he irritably asks, "What kind of a hunt would this be if I let the game eat my hound?" The breeder binds his hound with the silver whip, grumbling, "After all the trouble I put into raising him for my pack, you've rendered him useless, and I'll have to take him back myself." However, as he steps over another fallen black-haired character, likely Suchin, he pauses, a curious smile spreading across his face. How intriguing. I never expected to find a specimen as interesting as Gaeon Sin, especially not at Nest. While another Nest team searches for their trapped comrade in the rainy night, the breeder grins, grabbing our boy Suchin, deciding to keep him for himself and transform him into a monster. He then traps him in a transparent sphere. The team, led by the orange-helmeted member, finally traces the signal to a brick warehouse named Natural Life. An ominous feeling hangs in the air, leaving them deeply unsettled. Outside the Nest campus in the rainy night, Professor G anxiously directs medics, "This way." Team members rush the severely injured Huijin towards the infirmary, while other students watch with worried expressions. Professor G, seeing Huijin's critical state, grimly questions them. The team reports they went to the warehouse searching for jungle juice and encountered another powerful insect human. In the pouring rain, the tension hits a breaking point. Professor G grabs our boy by the collar, demanding to know why the mission ended in such a tragedy. Drenched and silent, our guy can only stare back with eyes full of suppressed pain. Amidst the chaos, other Nest members arrive on the scene. Professor Yu steps forward, calmly asking our boy to set his companion down so she can assess the situation. Professor Yu reaches out as a mysterious sighing glow emanates from her palms. Her complex is incredibly rare, a hybrid of a firefly and cordyceps fungus, prized throughout Nest for its supreme healing power. As the light flares in the rain, powerful healing energy begins to cover Huijin's broken body. Our boy watches intently, barely daring to breathe, silently praying for a miracle to happen. Under the healing glow, Huijin's horrific wounds actually begin to close. Watching the energy particles dance over her injuries, the despair on our boy's face finally cracks as he asks if this means she can be saved. But Professor Yu's words cruelly crush that hope. She reveals that it's too late. Huijin's heart stopped long ago. She can mend the flesh, but she cannot bring back the dead. Looking at his lifeless friend, our boy completely breaks down. The harsh reality leaves everyone in stunned silence. Our boy collapses in the mud, staring powerlessly at the cold body of his friend. The battle is over, but this irreversible loss may leave a permanent scar on his soul. The heavy rain beats down on the devastated group as they stare at Huijin's lifeless body. Our boy holds her tightly, refusing to let go even when someone tries to pull him away. Memories come rushing back. The harsh days of struggling in poverty and Huijin's past complaints about hating disgusting bugs pierce his heart like a knife. But they also share dreams of a better future. Even despised bugs have moments of breathtaking beauty when they shed their skin. To each other, they were the light in the dark. "As long as I'm here, I'll always catch those annoying bugs for you." That simple, playful promise became the very reason they fought to survive against all odds. Back in reality, our boy grips her wrist tightly, desperately calling her name. To everyone's shock, a miracle unfolds. It's the most mysterious stage of an insect's life metamorphosis. Discarding the broken shell to welcome a surge of new life. Amidst the dazzling glow, a powerful energy bursts forth, driving away the cold, relentless rain. A brilliant beam of light pierces the dark clouds as their hands clasp tightly together. With tears in his eyes and a relieved smile, our boy whispers, "I've got you." As the light fades, Huijin finally opens her eyes. Her fatal wounds are completely healed, and she even sports a pair of cute antennae. This deadly trial has triggered her true evolution. After the intense battle, the relief of survival is overwhelming. Seeing the friends embrace through the rain and tears, it's clear just how much this moment of safety means to them. Back at the Nest Hospital, our boy is looking pretty rough. Covered in bandages and soaked in sweat, it's obvious that his last encounter pushed him far beyond his physical limits. Before our boy can even catch his breath, Doa and Haizong burst in. Turns out they had their own close call, getting trapped under a collapsed warehouse, while everyone was frantically searching for them. They described the terrifying moment the earth shook and everything came crashing down. It was a near-death experience that left them pinned under the rubble for hours before they finally made it out. Everyone is safe, but the mission was a total bust. After all that fighting, it turns out the cans they secured were fakes, leaving our boy exhausted and frustrated at being back at square one. A strange detail emerges. The person who tipped him off about the hideout was just a random passerby. His striking appearance makes our boy realize that this encounter might not have been a coincidence. The stranger had distinctive lavender hair and a complex spider-shaped piercing. That kind of flamboyant, eerie style suggests he's someone far more dangerous than a simple bystander. Meanwhile, inside the pet shop base, mysterious figures walk through corridors filled with an unsettling vibe. A fluffy dog follows them, looking strangely out of place in such a dark environment. Just as suspected, the lavender-haired man is none other than Breeder. Toying with a bloody specimen, he mocks Nest's luck with a chilling arrogance that makes it clear he's already planning his next move. The villains are now checking in on their moles inside Nest. With Breeder's cunning and a new plot unfolding, a much larger conspiracy is beginning to tighten around our boy and his friends. In the hallway, several students appear to have just experienced some commotion, their faces showing surprise or nervousness, while in the distance, classmates in Nest uniforms are arriving. What exactly is going on here? Meanwhile, a girl with blue-purple hair smiles ominously, having successfully infiltrated the first-year students. She hints that a little fun is about to begin, suggesting trouble is brewing. Flashback a few days, an unusual assignment to find jungle juice had our boy and his team completely frazzled. But as the deadline loomed, they hadn't found a single can, leaving everyone feeling frustrated and tense. Faced with these results, Professor G unsparingly pointed out that not a single group had found the target. The students grumbled, arguing it was an impossible task, with no clues even online. Professor G, however, was unfazed, even a little smug. He pressed a button on his remote, revealing that the true purpose of the assignment wasn't to find the juice, but to make them realize how difficult it was to acquire. Professor G gravely explained that Nest was currently facing immense difficulties in acquiring jungle juice, so much so that only 2 or 3 vials of the Cinderella cure might be made this year. He revealed that outside the academy, another faction of insect humans was actively collecting this precious resource. The screen shifts, displaying surveillance footage and data cards. It shows this unknown faction using jungle juice spray to randomly attack bystanders, transforming them into insect humans. They're even illegally breeding dangerous alien species, creating various insect human specimens. Hearing this, the students looked grim, many clenching their fists. Professor G emphasized that many of those present were unwillingly transformed into what they are today, all thanks to this very faction. In the past, This faction rarely confronted Nest directly and operated covertly. But recently, their actions have grown increasingly bold, even shamelessly setting traps to threaten the Academy. Clearly, things have changed completely, and a larger crisis is brewing. Professor G lays it down straight. This semester is no longer a drill. It's all about real combat. He warns the class that if they aren't ready to risk their lives, they should pack up and leave right now. Real combat comes with a high price, and the recent casualties in Group A are a grim reminder. These students know all too well that one mistake against a specimen can be fatal. The tension in the classroom is thick enough to cut with a knife. Despite the fear, no one is moving. They've come too far to back down, and their eyes are filled with a grim resolve. Suddenly, a student breaks the silence with a practical question. If the risk is this high, will it boost their grades? The professor confirms that surviving these missions will have a huge impact on their final ranking. The moment he hears high risk equals high reward, his entire vibe changes. For someone aiming to be the valedictorian, putting his life on the line is the fastest way to rise to the top. Instead of suffering under the sick laws of this jungle, they're choosing to fight back and tear those rules down. A fierce will to survive and conquer is starting to spread among the students. Fueled by a competitive fire, no one wants to let the transfer kid outshine them. They'd rather unleash their instincts in battle than spend the rest of their lives hiding in the shadows. The atmosphere in the classroom is heavy. Professor G sternly warns the freshmen that while he used to only worry about injuries, now their lives are on the line. The weight of his words leaves the room in chilling silence. But then, the mood shifts. Professor G praises their teamwork and announces a student orientation before next week's special sessions. Our boy is left stunned by the sudden pivot from life or death talk to a social party. Calling it an orientation is an understatement. These insect humans party like they're at war. Amidst the chaos, our boy feels a surge of emotion, finding this bit of normal college life strangely surreal after all he's been through. Just then, a drunk Doa completely loses her cool. Usually stoic, she becomes wildly energetic after a few drinks, even picking fights with her classmates. Her explosive outbursts leave everyone around her in a state of pure shock. As Doa acts out, Haizong explains to our boy that this is actually her peculiar way of showing affection. Having lacked social contact growing up, she simply doesn't know how to interact normally and resorts to this violent enthusiasm. While everyone else is busy avoiding the violent drunk, a mysterious guy steps forward and invites Doa for a drink. Our boy and his friends watch in disbelief, wondering who this guy is and why he's brave enough to approach her. Surprisingly, Doa doesn't attack. Instead, she gets incredibly excited and clings to the man like a totally different person. As she happily drags him away, our boy is left utterly confused by this unexpected turn of events. While everyone is having a good time at the orientation party, our boy's insect instincts suddenly scream danger, sending a chill straight down his spine. Outside in the dark, a mysterious hooded creep who sneaked into the academy spots a defenseless Doa. Seeing his prey, he leans in with nasty intentions. Just before the creep can lay a finger on her, his wrist is caught in a vice grip. Our boy arrives just in time, absolutely furious at the scene before him. Meanwhile, at the villain's base, a minion asks the breeder if their target is the Dragonfly. The breeder just laughs, his eyes glowing with a sinister green fire. The breeder reveals he isn't after our boy yet. His real target is a specimen he has been raising for a long time, which happens to be Doa. Back to the confrontation, the creep tries to play it off as a joke, teasing if our boy is her boyfriend. But Suchin isn't having it, firmly grabbing his collar and shutting down his criminal nonsense. Facing the intruder head-on, our boy lunges forward and grabs him by the collar, warning the guy to stop getting in his way and get lost. But things take a sharp turn as black, feather-like objects fill the air. Before our boy can react, his hand is sliced open by these razor-sharp barbs. It turns out the opponent possesses the power of the Goliath bird-eater tarantula. The feathers are actually stinging hairs used as a deadly defense mechanism. With Doa bound and about to be taken away, our boy struggles against the pain. Despite his injuries, he refuses to back down while his friend is in danger. Mocking our boy for being out of his league, the hooded attacker dashes forward again with beast-like speed, forcing Suchin into a desperate defense. In the heat of battle, our boy's insect instincts fully kick in. With his green eyes turning into sharp slits, he feels his full power surging back into his veins. Although our boy regains his footing and counterattacks, the villain remains unfazed. Behind that arrogant smirk lies the true horror of the spider's biological arsenal. The stinging hairs swarm through the air like guided missiles. No matter how fast our boy flies, he can't escape the relentless barrage of sharp barbs. Battered and bruised, our boy is slammed into the ground. Facing such overwhelming odds, he realizes that saving Doa alone might be an impossible task. Under the deep night sky, the hooded mysterious figure wears a contemptuous smirk. His vertical purple pupils gleam with malice, hinting at a sinister plan in motion. Meanwhile, in the brightly lit restaurant, the atmosphere is heavy. Huijin stares at her drink, wondering how to get a moment alone with our boy, only to realize he's been gone for a while. Before Huijin can process her thoughts, a frantic Haizang rushes over. The group realizes with horror that not only is Suchin missing, but Doa hasn't been seen for over an hour. The scene shifts to the forest, where our boy is being ambushed. Faced with the mysterious man's explosive power, Suchin is sent spiraling into the air, struggling to regain his footing. Our boy tries to gain an altitude advantage, but his hand is sliced by the enemy's stinging hairs. The unfamiliar attack leaves his whole body stinging as he crashes toward the ground. Pushing through the pain, our boy is horrified to see Doa bound to a tree with thick white threads. Seeing his unconscious teammate, he realizes there is no turning back now. The villain mocks him for interfering, threatening the peaceful life he's built. But for our boy, his friends are the red line he won't let anyone ruin what he fights to protect. In this moment, our boy's eyes turn cold. With a flash of greenish lightning, he spreads his wings and dives, now viewing his opponent as nothing more than prey to be hunted. Professor G's face is grim as he ponders the delicate balance between human reason and insect instincts. He firmly declares that to protect this balance, someone must be hunted down. Just then, a mysterious hooded figure appears with a mocking smile, proclaiming that only by breaking the balance of reason and fully unleashing one's animal instincts can true power be achieved. The tension is thick as Junhyang struggles in pain, clutching his collar, while Doa stands guard. Just as they're whispering, a sudden sound at the door puts them both on high alert. It turns out to be just a girl announcing lunchtime. Suddenly, our boy finds himself in the middle of a bustling cafeteria, completely bewildered by the sudden change in scenery. Taking in the warm yet unfamiliar surroundings, our boy wonders where they've ended up. It turns out they're at the Angel Orphanage, a peaceful sanctuary far away from the chaos. As she eats, Doa reveals a vulnerable side, telling our boy that this countryside orphanage is her childhood home. The old brick building holds the weight of all her early memories. The kids are fascinated by Doa's tale, poking and prodding it like a new toy. To keep them calm, she has to pretend it's fake, leaving our boy watching the awkward scene. Despite her growing irritation at the kids' constant touching, Doa keeps her cool for their sake. Eventually, she hits her limit and makes a hasty retreat, leaving a shattered window behind. A kind elderly caretaker approaches our boy, offering a tray of food and telling him to feel at home. His gentle demeanor helps our boy finally start to relax in this strange place. The caretaker explains that Junhyang was the one who brought them here last night. It turns out he and Doa grew up together as childhood friends, a fact that leaves our boy stunned. Junhyang has already left, leaving our boy confused about his true intentions. Meanwhile, the caretaker asks if Doa is being bullied at school, which earns a silent, awkward smile from our boy. Our boy is deep in thought, face flushed, seemingly recalling something. He's worried about Doa, remembering how fragile she was as a child. The scene shifts to Doa herself. She sits on the bed, arms crossed, leaning forward with a wary expression, clearly uneasy. The dialogue mentions everyone's shock when she appeared with a strange tale, a lingering shadow in her mind. The flashback continues. Young Doa is leaving school, happily waving goodbye to a friend. But just as she steps out of the school gates, a familiar and terrifying figure slowly approaches her. It's none other than her father, wearing an electronic ankle monitor. He menacingly forces Doa to go home and tell them he's back, his tone full of threats. Doa trembles in fear, trying to refuse, but her father's escalating threats overwhelm her. As he raises his hand to strike, she can only recoil in despair, unable to resist. The flashback abruptly ends. Adult Doa bites her lip, curled up on the ground, her tail hanging limply behind her. This place has brought back too many painful memories, tormenting her. Meanwhile, our boy is chatting with a gray-haired man, who kindly asks if he should head back and offers to bring his clothes. Just then, a little girl excitedly runs over, inviting our boy to draw with her. It turns out the little girl, Yerim, finds our boy quite handsome and wants to play with him. Though a bit confused, he decides to humor her for a while. Yerim innocently wishes for such beautiful wings, thinking they'd be cool. Our boy, however, looks pensive. To him, having insect wings only brings disgust and rejection. But then Yerim changes her tune, saying she loves dragonflies because they eat over 200 mosquitoes a day, making them superheroes. Our boy is moved by this. Perhaps his own dragonfly powers aren't so bad after all. Our boy Junhyung receives a sketchbook from a young girl as a parting gift. Feeling a rare sense of peace, he prepares to head back to campus with Doa. Meanwhile, in a chilling basement, villains prepare a captive for departure. They cold-bloodedly administer anesthetics, treating the girl like mere inventory. Photos of cruel experiments line the walls as a giant millipede rides in a metal grip. To these pet shop members, insect humans are nothing but valuable products. They even use specialized sprays to ensure the products remain undamaged. Every move is calculated to preserve the market value of their captive specimens. Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupts them. Junhyung peeks in, claiming he's lost and looking for a bathroom, a weak excuse for being in a restricted basement. As they call out his trespassing, Junhyung drops the act. He coldly admits his intent, and the confrontation explodes into a chaotic cloud of purple gas. Amidst the struggle, Junhyung reveals the sketchbook. It turns out the children saw everything, capturing the villain's dark deeds in their innocent drawings. Recalling Doa's suffering, Junhyung's gaze turns ice cold. He declares that while he respects humans, these monsters don't deserve an ounce of his mercy. A curious child discovered a strange drawing at the orphanage, the symbols within leaving him deeply puzzled. Searching for the lady and little girl from the drawing, he knocked on a wall marked with a warning sign, uncovering a secret room. As he tried to enter, another crying child attempted to stop him. Driven by curiosity, he pushed the door open, revealing a deep, bottomless basement. He couldn't help but wonder, why would an orphanage have such a hidden place? Meanwhile, a seemingly calm black-haired boy watched it all from a distance. Seeing the curious child trespass into the restricted area, he merely sighed, "Well, I warned him." Upon entering the secret room, the curious child discovered not only strange glowing drawings, but also a group of mysterious figures in white robes. He was clearly in deep trouble. Caught in a sudden ambush, Junhyung Lee is struggling to keep up. The enemy's coordinated strikes are relentless, and a powerful blow sends him reeling backward as the situation turns dire. In this life-or-death moment, he desperately looks for an opening. But the enemy's blades follow his every move, refusing to give him even a second to catch his breath. The villain wears a twisted smirk, admitting he once considered recruiting Junhyung. But now, he's decided that a dead body would be far more useful to his cause. The scene shifts to a quieter moment. Junhyung brings some clothes to Doa. Despite his usual cold exterior, there's a faint, uncharacteristic trace of concern in his eyes. Suddenly, a massive tremor from the basement catches them off guard. Doa's scorpion instincts flare up, sensing a growing, sinister presence deep within the facility. Junhyung grabs Doa, demanding she remember her life before becoming an insect human. He's trying to pull her back to reality, urging her not to lose herself to the monster within. Agonizing memories flood back as Doa recalls her abusive father. In her past, he was a demon who crushed her spirit, leaving her trembling and utterly helpless in the face of his cruelty. Junhyung recalls wanting to kill that man for her sake. However, he realized that unless Doa found her own strength, removing one scumbag wouldn't fix the root of her deep-seated trauma. Watching the falling feathers, Junhyung sinks into deep thought. He realizes that saving someone isn't just about violence, it's about mending a heart that was broken long ago. Looking at the modified girl on the table, Doa recalls her own painful past. The hooded man seizes the chance, claiming that this mutation is their only salvation. Fueled by the villain's words, her darkest memories resurface. Back then, awakening her terrifying insect power was the only way she could stop her abusive father and end the nightmare. Pointing to the helpless orphans, he holds up the mysterious spray, shamelessly declaring that this forced mutation is their only way out. Painting a picture of a utopia for insect humans, he grabs her arm, urging her to abandon humanity and join his cause in the name of friendship. Playing along with his twisted manipulation, Doa quietly agrees, only to suddenly deliver a brutal kick that sends the clueless villain flying across the room. Stomping the ground with immense power, her dominant stance says it all. She is entirely done with these sick mind games, and now it's payback time. Meanwhile, fed up with the villain's stubbornness, Doa scoffs and delivers a fierce flying kick, determined to beat some sense into him once and for all. Back at the main battlefield, the professors face a massive mosquito swarm. Refusing to waste time, our boy spreads his wings and dives straight toward the enemy's core. However, a smirking villain blocks the way, taunting that the little girl has already been moved elsewhere. He tries to crush our guy's hope with pure despair. Little does the villain know, those words only trigger a memory. The girl once innocently said that a dragonfly, which eats hundreds of mosquitoes daily, is basically a superhero. Entrusted with such pure faith, there's no way our boy is backing down. Facing these mosquito monsters, his apex predator instincts awaken, unleashing the ultimate natural fear. With a sonic boom, our guy crashes onto a black container like a meteor. The immense impact instantly blows away all the surrounding guards. Just as he tries to break open the box, a purple mutant ambushes him. The enemy's blinding speed and relentless strikes leave our boy instantly wounded. Despite the deadly pursuit, our boy doesn't panic. He takes the heavy hit head-on, while his dragonfly wings erupt with dazzling energy. The real counterattack is just beginning. To reach the scene in time, our boy pushes his flight speed to the max. Despite the harsh wind bringing him to tears, he fights through the pain and keeps soaring forward. On the other battlefield, Doa faces off against her former ally. The villain thought he could easily talk her into surrendering, but now realizes force is his only option. The villain fires a barrage of stingers, but Doa effortlessly dodges with her insane agility. She counters with a heavy punch to his face, mocking his cheap tricks. Realizing his stingers can't pierce her exoskeleton, the villain fiercely counters with a heavy punch of his own. The brutal hand-to-hand combat instantly escalates the fight. But Doa is clearly on another level. With a furious roar, she violently slams him into the ground, arrogantly claiming she went easy on him after the brutal takedown. Just as she takes a breather, the sneaky bastard hijacks a car and speeds off with the hostage. Furious, Doa sprints desperately after them, screaming curses. Smugly speeding away, the villain assumes no one on foot can catch a car. But suddenly, our boy shoots past like a meteor and locks onto the vehicle. The real show is just beginning. With a deafening crash, the speeding car is violently intercepted and flipped. Seeing the wreckage, Doa is completely enraged, unleashing an overwhelming aura. Trapped inside the wrecked car, our boy is injured but lucky to be alive. Meanwhile, Junhyun looks down mockingly, marveling at her terrifying destructive power. Ignoring his taunts, Doa tanks a heavy kick and immediately counters with a brutal punch straight to Junhyun's face, aiming to end this fight right now. Giving him no room to breathe, she leaps into the air and delivers a devastating axe kick, slamming Junhyun into the ground with terrifying force. Sliding to a halt, Junhyun calmly rips the tape off his mouth. With a terrifying facial mutation, he reveals razor-sharp fangs, preparing to unleash his true trump card. He finally reveals his terrifying hybrid powers of a tarantula and a black mamba. A massive shadowy snake materializes, lunging ruthlessly at Doa with its jaws wide open. Caught off guard, Doa is brutally bitten by the venomous fangs. As the deadly toxin spreads and blurs her vision, the villain smirks, coldly watching his prey struggle. With a massive crash, our boy violently rips open the wrecked car's roof. Doa awakens from her anesthesia just in time to see him fiercely fighting off the enemies to save her. Facing a high-speed attack from a familiar foe, our boy doesn't back down. Spreading his glowing wings, he charges forward and instantly blasts the enemies away with a fierce strike. Seeing his comrades wiped out, the remaining villain isn't panicked at all. Instead, he arrogantly taunts our boy, certain that his lethal venom will keep him completely out of reach. The villain's relentless venom attacks leave our boy battered and bleeding. But instead of falling, his eyes glow with a fierce green light as he clenches his fists, ready to flip the script. Seeing his target's resolve, the villain takes to the sky. He dive bombs from above, unleashing a massive barrage of venomous stingers to completely crush our guy on the ground. Even a slight graze from the stingers causes agonizing, burning pain. The villain takes full advantage, raining down attacks while mocking our boy's complete lack of venom tolerance. But before the villain can finish his taunts, our boy powers straight through the venomous rain. With zero hesitation, he delivers a brutal headbutt, sending them both crashing down like a meteor. Facing a hail of venomous stingers, our boy doesn't back down. Relying on his incredible dynamic vision, he spots a split-second opening in the chaos and dives right in. His new goggles perfectly block the wind and dust. With nothing holding him back, he goes full throttle and lands a devastating flying kick right on the villain's face, turning the tide. Just as he's about to finish the fight, Lee Junhyun refuses to go down. He unleashes his terrifying Black Mamba instincts, launching a vicious counterattack at lightning speed. Our boy barely dodges the deadly fangs. Meanwhile, an unhinged Junhyun roars at him to stay out of his way, claiming no one else understands the true pain of being weak. A tragic flashback hits. Young Junhyun watches helplessly from behind a door as his sick mother is cornered by loan sharks. Her desperate pleas only earn her a brutal slap and vicious insults. Even though the brave kid rushes in to protect his mom, his tiny fists are completely useless against the absolute violence of the thugs. In the end, his mother passes away. Standing over her, Junhyung's mind is completely broken. If only he had powers sooner. In this cruel world, a life without power is nothing but a tragedy. Desperate to save Doa, the deranged Junhyung unleashes his tarantula's defense mechanism. Countless stingers morph into a massive, multi-headed snake aura, crashing down toward them like a nightmare. Facing the overwhelming barrage, our boy knows he can't dodge it all. Without hesitation, he wraps his body around the unconscious Doa, acting as a human shield. Watching this, Junhyung coldly mocks our guy's reckless hero mentality. He sneers that Doa is already immune to his poison, and this self-righteous protection is only putting her in more danger. But our boy ignores the taunts, gently laying Doa down on a safe spot. He firmly snaps back that she is already strong enough and doesn't need his twisted, overprotective complex. Clearly struck a nerve, the enraged Junhyung lunges down with his massive black mamba aura. He arrogantly declares that in the face of his absolute speed, our guy has zero chance of winning. But the very next second, the villain is left utterly dumbfounded. Our boy's compound eyes gleam as he transforms into a green flash, effortlessly dodging the fatal ambush. It isn't prediction, it's pure speed domination. Facing a tough enemy, our boy fully unleashes his dragonfly hunting instincts. He dive bombs at lightning speed, completely cutting off every escape route for his prey. The villain can't even process this insane speed. Mocking the enemy for being the true weakling, our guy slams him ruthlessly into the ground with overwhelming force. With a massive crash, the battle finally ends. Landing with heavy pants, our boy quickly checks on everyone's safety, while the battered victim breathes a sigh of relief. Just then, the girl gasps and points at his back. Our boy's heart sinks. Haunted by past trauma, he assumes his exposed wings will make them see him as a monster again. But to his surprise, the girl isn't scared at all. Instead, she looks at him with pure concern, heartbroken by the torn clothes and wounds he got from saving them. The rescued victim also sheds tears, sincerely thanking their Mr. Dragonfly. Hearing this long-lost gratitude, our guy finally lets his guard down and smiles in pure relief. But the cool moment doesn't last long. The battle wound suddenly stings so bad he has to grab his eye. When the panicked girl asks if he's okay, our boy plays tough, swearing it doesn't hurt at all. After ensuring Mihui is safe, our boy turns to check on the unconscious Doa, only to find she has vanished into thin air. Just as confusion sets in, a sudden attack comes from behind. Our boy quickly shields Mihui, but the attacker instantly disappears like a ghost. Turns out, the attacker is the breeder's transporter. He snatches Doa, revealing that the breeder expected Junhyung to fail, and sent him to drag her back for a cruel feat training. Hearing this, the heavily injured Junhyung desperately struggles to save Doa, but the transporter mercilessly pins him down, mocking him as a worthless dog abandoned by the organization. After a few cold insults, the transporter drops a flashbang and vanishes with Doa in the blinding light. Unable to give chase, the defeated Junhyung is full of frustration. He turns to our boy, desperate to know if he has any idea where they went. Putting past grudges aside, our guy answers with a determined look, promising that he knows exactly how to track them down. Meanwhile, in an unknown base, Doa finally wakes up. Standing right behind her is the chilling transporter, ready to make his next move. Trapped in the pet shop's secret greenhouse, Doa refuses to break. When asked to switch sides, she gives them a furious, unfiltered rejection. But the twisted executive, breeder, isn't mad at all. He actually loves her rebellious spirit, snapping his fingers as a henchman serves up a sizzling, mouth-watering steak. Slicing the meat, breeder casually suggests they chat over lunch. He claims the food isn't drugged, insisting that all living creatures are ultimately driven by raw appetite. Petting his dog, he hints that a little treat can turn the fiercest beast into a loyal hound. Yet Doa clenches her jaw, refusing to take a single bite. Seeing her stubbornness, breeder's smile turns sinister. He taunts her by revealing that they went through a lot of trouble to prepare the special ingredients for this very meal. Realizing what the meat might be, Doa is horrified. She screams and struggles frantically against her bindings, but breeder coldly laughs, mocking that eating isn't her choice to make. Suddenly, a wave of intense dizziness hits Doa, leaving her completely paralyzed. Just then, the traitor Gaeon steps out of the shadows, catching the weakened girl from behind. Taking in the chaotic scene, Gaeon glares coldly at breeder, warning him that whatever he called her here to see better be worth her time. Smirking, breeder proudly explains his feed training. By getting insect humans addicted to this special meat, He can shatter their willpower and brainwash them into obedient monsters. Leaning into the helpless prey, Gaeon whispers, like a devil in Doa's ear, tempting her with this twisted power. Our fierce girl is truly backed into a terrifying corner. Deep in the underground base, the villains are using glowing, eerie chunks of meat to cruelly brainwash the captured insect humans. Even though the victims remain conscious, one bite of this meat turns them into out-of-control monsters who see their former friends as tasty snacks. Just as the villains are gloating, a sudden massive explosion rips through the area, forcibly interrupting their twisted brainwashing ritual. Meanwhile, to track down the invisible enemy, Junhyang uses his tarantula abilities to cast a massive sensory web across the forest, leaving the target nowhere to hide. But his smug smile doesn't last long. A terrifyingly powerful enemy suddenly appears and pins his ally down, making our boy instantly tense up. Tightly guarding the unconscious Doa, our boy finds himself deep in enemy territory. The villainous boss isn't panicked at all, but rather eyes this unexpected guest with amusement. Feeling the oppressive aura, our boy immediately recognizes him as the dangerous guy from the warehouse. To make matters worse, the traitor Gaeon Sin is also present. They finally notice what's wrong. Purple lightning marks are glowing on Doa's neck. She's been entirely controlled by neurotoxins and Gaeon Sin's abilities this whole time. To completely break Doa's will, the villains use a cruel feeding method, forcing her to consume insect human flesh to turn her into an addicted slave. Unable to watch his companion suffer, the collaborator who made a deal with the villains finally snaps, furiously demanding why they broke their promise to spare the orphanage. Unfazed by the threat, the villain simply puts on a mocking smile and pulls out a tablet, offering him a virtual tour of their so-called secret breeding lab. The screen reveals a horrifying truth. The innocent orphanage children have been mutated into cannibalistic monsters. The villain twistedly calls this gruesome torture perfect training. Realizing he's been completely played, the collaborator loses his mind. Roaring with fury, his eyes glow purple as he launches a suicidal charge at the scumbags. Just as his strike is about to land, the brainwashed Doa is thrown in front as a living shield. With a terrifying spitting kick, she shatters his fangs instantly. Stunned by Doa's overwhelming power, the collaborator learns the dark truth. The villain altered her nervous system, using a force doping method to completely uncap her deadly scorpion instincts. Doa unleashes the absolute power of the Emperor Scorpion. Her hardened exoskeleton forms a devastating gauntlet, ready to crush anything in her path. The two clash in an explosive burst of energy. Our boy is knocked back, completely overwhelmed by Doa's terrifying, uncontrolled strength. Watching from the sidelines, the villain gloats. He used venom to trigger Doa's deepest trauma, turning her into a mindless predator to force a battle to the death. Doa! Snap out of it! Refusing to fight his friend, our boy desperately yells out, hoping to break through the villain's mind control. But in that moment of distraction, sticky spiderwebs suddenly bind his limbs. The villain smirks, mocking that a web is the perfect final resting place for a dragonfly. Pinned down and burning with rage, our boy furiously questions the mastermind. Why are you doing this? Why turn innocent kids into monsters? His sheer rage triggers his predatory instinct. The villain brushes off his charge, only to be struck in the face by a blindingly fast blow. The villain is completely stunned by this sudden burst of speed. But for our boy, this brutal counterattack to avenge his friends has only just begun. Our boy explodes with incredible speed, landing a heavy blow that triggers a massive energy blast. But instead of backing down, the sick creep actually smiles at the sheer violence. The tables turn in a flash. The breeder unleashes his water spider powers, ensnaring our boy in relentless streams. Watching him struggle, the twisted villain declares that wild prey is the most fun to tame. Weaving deadly webs, the breeder reveals his twisted obsession. But our boy isn't about to give up. Gritting his teeth against the crushing water pressure, he charges forward for another desperate strike. Suddenly, the rain turns into an inescapable cage. The breeder activates the ultimate defense mechanism. Invisible threads tighten in midair, leaving our boy trapped and struggling against the intense pull. Things get even worse as the breeder encases our boy's head in a water bubble, cutting off his oxygen. Watching his prey suffocate, the villain smugly shows off his absolute control over the water. The scene shifts back to a stunned Manhwa. Just moments ago, our boy stepped up during the deadly ambush, protecting her and gently draping his jacket over her shoulders before rushing off to fight. Staring at the wrecked van and feeling the warmth of the jacket, she finally realizes just how much danger the seemingly ordinary boy faced to save her life. Meanwhile, in another brutal battlefield, heavy punches collide with the sickening crunch of bones. Instead of feeling pain, The purple-haired Villainous revels in the violent symphony, her smile growing utterly unhinged. With a terrifying dash, she unleashes a flurry of high-speed attacks. The black-haired guy is knocked to his knees, his body battered as if he's just been run over by a massive truck. But there's no time to breathe in this cruel fight. Just as he tries to get up, a white-haired figure descends from above, delivering a devastating dive kick straight to his face. On the battlefield, Junhyang is trapped in a relentless 1v3 nightmare. Facing overwhelming strikes from all sides, he can barely hold his ground. The attacker shows zero mercy. A devastating aerial blast followed by a frenzy of claw slashes aimed straight for his life, ready to tear him apart. A desperate cry for Junhyang pierces the chaos, but the enemy's lethal blow is already inches away. He's hanging by a thread against this brutal onslaught. The villains are so confident they actually start chatting, praising their test subject's artificially enhanced combat power, as if it's just a fun hunting game. Then, the sadistic breeder steps in with a twisted smile. Looking down at the battered and kneeling Junhyang, he mocks him for enduring so much pain just to save someone. The breeder keeps pushing his twisted ideology. Why cling to humanity? Let her become a feeding monster, and she'll thrive in our new, perfect world. Assuming Junhyang is completely broken, the villains coldly give the command to eat up, preparing to end this whole ordeal right here and now. Watching his companion about to turn into a monster, Junhyang mutters in agony that he only wanted her to be happy. The breeder mockingly agrees that this is exactly what happiness looks like. Hearing this absolute garbage triggers something deep inside Junhyang. He unleashes a massive burst of energy, roaring back that turning her into a mindless beast is the complete opposite of happiness. He knows the horrific price of mutation better than anyone. Tearing through his limits, he cries out the bitter truth. Once you become a monster, there's no one left by your side anymore. Rumors about his mother's death made Junhyang an outcast at the orphanage. Those malicious whispers dragged his childhood into absolute darkness. Until a girl, also covered in bandages, reached out to him with a bright smile. She became the only light in his gloomy life. But the warmth of memory fades fast against a cruel reality. Beaten and bloody, Junhyang collapses on the ground, completely at the villain's mercy. Watching his ally about to be force-fed mutant flesh, Junhyang pushes past his limits, firing off one last desperate stinger. Seeing the stinger miss its mark, the villain laughs, thinking he's too weak to even aim straight anymore. But he wasn't aiming for the meat at all. His brilliant feint distracts the enemy, creating the perfect opening for our boy's surprise attack. Carrying Junhyang's unspoken trust, our boy fully unleashes his instincts. Spreading his massive wings, he dives from the sky like an absolute menace. The villain bares her fangs, instantly locking onto our guy with a deadly barrage. To save his friend, he'll have to break through this web of death first. Facing the overwhelmingly powerful breeder, our boy recalls Lee Junhyang's warning. His half-baked attacks won't even scratch a monster of this level. To save Doa, Junhyang gave him a crucial tip. Instead of throwing weak punches, he needs to reach maximum speed and charge with his entire body. In short, he has to turn his own body into a lethal sniper bullet aimed right at the enemy. Back in reality, our boy crouches and gathers power. With his reinforced wings and a perfect start, he breaks the sound barrier and explodes into a terrifying speed. At that moment, the arrogant breeder finally panics, feeling exactly like prey caught in a hunter's crosshairs. With a blinding flash, our boy slams into his target. Though it looks incredibly badass, this move is a double-edged sword. The extreme speed takes a massive toll on his body, meaning he can only fly straight without braking or turning. There's no turning back now. Our guy must bet absolutely everything on this one final, crushing impact. The mid-air clash pushes the villain to his limits. Barely surviving the impact with a web, he finds himself thrillingly challenged by our boy's monstrous strength. To end this once and for all, the villain unleashes the Diving Bell Spider's ultimate defense, instantly trapping them both inside a massive sphere of water. Caught completely off guard, our boy is dragged into the deep water. Stripped of his strength in this hostile environment, he is effortlessly pinned down like helpless prey. Looking down at his defenseless prey, the villain arrogantly scripts the tragic ending. Once he drowns here, he'll wake up brainwashed as a mindless, bloodthirsty monster. Freezing water fills his lungs as his consciousness fades. Terrified by the thought of losing his last shred of humanity, our guy silently screams for help in total despair. Just in the nick of time, a terrifying surge of energy crashes down, completely shattering the indestructible water sphere in a single blow. The arrogant villain is left completely speechless. As the water clears, a warm hand reaches out to save him. Hearing a familiar voice teasing his near-drowning experience, our boy opens his eyes in pure disbelief to see Huijin. It turns out Huijin didn't waste a single second calling for backup. With Nest agents now swarming the night sky, the ultimate counterattack is finally about to begin. Facing the crisis, our boy recalls Professor Ma's tip. Nest security agents had tailed the traitor Gaeon Sin, which led them right to this spot. A few hours earlier, the trailing security agent was hiding in the shadows. But Gaeon seemingly vanished into thin air with a mysterious accomplice, leaving the agent completely baffled. Fortunately, the trail wasn't completely lost. Back in the present, our boy reassures Huijin that the innocent girl caught up in this mess is safely protected by Nest. Just as Huijin sighs in relief, danger strikes. Using his kinetic vision, our boy spots a deadly incoming threat and fiercely yanks Huijin back, narrowly dodging a high-speed crash. As the dust settles, the attacker is revealed to be their comrade Doa. Her purple glowing eyes prove she's being mind-controlled by venom, while the traitor Gaeon steps out with a wicked smirk. Seeing their friend turn into a ruthless puppet, the team knows words won't work. They grit their teeth and launch a blazing fast counterattack, trying to literally knock some sense into Doa. Gaeon isn't about to let that happen. Mocking their efforts, she fiercely intercepts the attack. Without hesitation, our boy spreads his dragonfly wings and dive bombs her, aiming to break the defense line. But it's a trap. Gaeon effortlessly deflects the strike and counters with her deadly marionette threads, snagging our boy's head. To make matters worse, the breeder's nightmarish diving bell spider defense mechanism is fully activated. Facing overwhelmingly powerful enemies, our boy is completely immobilized by their silk threads. The villains emit a dangerous aura, their strength seemingly rivaling even Professor G's. Realizing they can't win a direct fight, Sachin urges Huijin to escape with their allies while he buys time, but she immediately turns him down. Instead of backing down, Huijin flashes a confident smile. She reminds him that they are far from fighting a losing battle alone, as their reinforcements have finally arrived. Right on cue, Haizong bursts onto the scene like a cannonball, sending an enemy flying. Furious at the sight of his battered friends, he vows to make the attackers pay. Just as the purple-haired villain prepares to counterattack, she is caught off guard and tightly bound by a sudden web of silk. This unexpected crowd control leaves everyone stunned. It turns out that their allies have arrived just in time to repay a past debt. They not only suppress the enemy, but also successfully rescue the hostages, completely turning the tide. However, the purple-haired woman remains entirely unfazed by these little tricks. She scoffs at their efforts, seeing them merely as weak bugs waiting to be crushed at once. Before she can even make her move, a sudden explosion sweeps across the battlefield. From the roaring flames, a terrifyingly massive shadow slowly emerges, signaling that the real nightmare has just begun. Seeing his students pushed to the brink, the fiercely protective professor finally arrives. Radiating absolute murder, he coldly asks the villains who wants to be turned to ash first. Unfazed by the enemies surrounding him, the professor stands firmly in front of the heavily injured kids. He makes it clear that he's completely sick of these freaks tormenting his students. Old grudges run deep. The professor threatens to burn Gaeon to a crisp, mocking the scar he gave her 5 years ago. Striking a nerve, she curses him out while holding her bleeding face. Furious, Gaeon spreads her wings and dives in for a deadly strike. But just as she's about to clash with the fiery professor, the blue-haired leader suddenly calls off the attack. Ignoring Gaeon's protests, the leader orders his men to drag her away by force. Seeing the enemy vanish in an instant, even the professor is caught slightly off guard by the sudden retreat. Playing the peacemaker, the blue-haired leader proposes a truce, offering to let them leave with the students. But before he can even finish his sentence, the hot-tempered professor lunges at him with a flaming punch. Confirming that this guy is the mastermind behind the tragedies, the professor goes all out. Driven by pure hatred, he unleashes a blazing assault, vowing to make the villain pay in blood for everything he's done. Facing such a formidable enemy, the professor goes all out, compressing the explosive energy to its absolute limit before unleashing a devastating blast to wipe the villain out. Blinding flames and terrifying heat sweep the battlefield. The relentless chain of explosions shows the students the professor's true, overwhelming power. However, just when everyone thinks the villain is cooked, the smoke clears to reveal the breeder completely unharmed behind a giant shell, casually mocking the professor's attack. Without missing a beat, the villain counterattacks. He summons a terrifying, massive insected beast that instantly knocks everyone back and snatches Doa in the chaos. Facing this nightmare-inducing giant centipede, despair sets in for the team. Sitting highly on the beast, the breeder arrogantly declares he'll spare their lives for today. After a few mocking parting words, the villain commands the beast to plunge into the earth, escaping through a massive tunnel and leaving the stunned team behind. Knowing innocent students are still trapped, our boy Sachin desperately tries to get chase, but collapses from utter exhaustion. The professor watches him fall, knowing it's a miracle the kid even lasted this long. After the fierce battle, even the strict Professor G has to admit our boy has serious potential. With everyone returning safely, the chaotic incident finally comes to an end. The recovery phase begins. Doa is already bouncing back and angrily demanding better food while the rescued kids are safely relocated to a new center. Though everyone is safe, Gaeyeon and the breeder have completely vanished, leaving a lingering threat. Meanwhile, Junhyang, the abandoned spy, reflects on his failed infiltration. Cut to the hospital room, where a heavily bandaged Junhyang is forced to share a space with the others. Seeing the former traitor, Haizong storms over, completely furious. Haizong aggressively grabs Junhyang, making our boy sweat drop in the background. Yet Junhyang stubbornly clings to his belief that weakness equals misery, which only pisses Haizong off more. Our boy stays completely calm despite Junhyang's extreme views. After surviving everything, he knows that true happiness and worth aren't solely defined by raw power. Junhyang is suddenly pulled into a painful memory. During his tragic childhood, he tried everything to protect his mother from an abusive thug, only to be cursed at and attacked. With a sickening crack, the abuser lands a brutal strike on his defenseless mother. This horrific moment is the exact tragedy that twisted Junhyang's view on power forever. Junhyang falls into a tragic childhood memory. He remembers his mother, covered in blood but still forcing a smile, promising him that they would always be happy. Waking up from his memories, Junhyang still can't let go of his mother's empty promise. Now fully healed, he is quickly escorted away by heavily armed guards for interrogation. Meanwhile, the others visit the injured in the hospital. Having just been discharged, our boy heads back to his dorm to focus on his studies, only to realize something is off the moment he opens the door. To his shock, Wee-Jin has sneaked into his room through the window in the middle of the night. Before he can react, she turns around with a half smile and drops a bombshell question. "Did you sleep with Doa?" This unexpected and outrageous question completely fries our boy's brain. He stands frozen in place, breaking out in a cold sweat. Flashing back to the girls' dorm a bit earlier, Hui-Jin is blow-drying her hair while chatting with a newly discharged Doa. Out of nowhere, Doa jokingly brings up the misunderstanding of waking up in the same bed with our boy after getting drunk at orientation. Hearing the shocking news, Hui-Jin drops her hairdryer in utter disbelief. Without a second thought, she storms out in a rage, heading straight for our boy's room to demand answers. Seeing Hui-Jin about to leave through the window, Doa initially asks her to pass a message to our boy. But remembering his heroic rescue, she blushes fiercely and decides to thank him herself later. Turns out Hui-Jin went straight to our boy's room to interrogate his relationship with Doa. Facing her knuckle-cracking, sweet but deadly interrogation, our guy is instantly sweating bullets. Dropping to his knees to save his life, our guy frantically explains he's completely single and has never even held a girl's hand. Realizing her massive, jealous overreaction, Hui-Jin intensely blushes. But Hui-Jin quickly recalls he was hugged by his old crush Mihue, immediately bringing up the old history. With his poor Dragonfly memory, our clueless guy panics and desperately denies everything. Dropping the panic, our boy suddenly looks at Hui-Jin with absolute sincerity. Remembering all the time she risked her life for him, he earnestly declares his wish to repay her kindness. Caught off guard by his honesty, Hui-Jin leans in dangerously close. With a playful smirk, she whispers that she's completely sure he can think of a good way to repay her. The next day, at an executive meeting, the atmosphere is dead serious. The higher-ups officially announce their final decision. Nest is done defending, and will prepare for an all-out war against Breeder's organization. Meanwhile, the Academy's top brass reviews the interrogation recording of the mole. Though abandoned by the enemy, he still provided some highly valuable intel. Following the clues, the fiery Professor Ma reveals a hidden laboratory where the enemy keeps all their fully mutated insect-human monsters. This isolated place, known as Black Island, is likely their main base. To play it safe, Professor G suggests sending experienced graduate students to scout it out first. However, the dean shakes his head. The upperclassmen are busy, and higher-ups have recognized the freshmen's potential, ordering our boys' class to take on this reconnaissance task. Despite Professor G's concerns, the other mentors agree that overprotecting them won't help. Facing the looming conspiracy, they decide it's time for these rookies to brave the real storm. Meanwhile, our boy is grabbing a bite with his newly rescued companion. To show her gratitude, she treats him to a meal, but the insane spiciness leaves him sweating bullets. Looking at the bustling street, our boy can't help but marvel that, lethal crises aside, it feels just like a normal college town. But beneath the surface, a brand new trial awaits them. While enjoying a casual meal, our boy and Huijin chat about Haizong visiting his parents, and wonder how Doa is doing alone. Just as the mood sets in, two mischievous classmates pop out of nowhere, teasing them for supposedly being on a secret date. Jokes aside, the girls are actually heading to the newly opened lab to apply for gear. Hearing this, Huijin excitedly drags our boy along. On the way, they explain to our confused boy that the lab engineers combat gear, and its opening means a major battle is approaching. Soon, the group arrives at the high-tech research center. Stepping inside, our boy is completely mesmerized by all the fancy equipment. When asked what he plans to apply for, our boy sheepishly admits he just tagged along, while the girls firmly state they need custom weapons. Recalling how our boy saved them in the woods, the girls feel grateful, but also deeply frustrated by their own helplessness. To survive the brutal trials ahead, they must get stronger. Their fierce determination resonates deeply with our boy's own inner fears. Realizing he also needs more power to face the unknown threats ahead, our boy steps up to the counter with a clear plan in mind. Friends thought our boy would be devastated after his recent defeat and failing to save the kids, even wondering how to cheer him up. Meanwhile, Professor G hits the nail on the head regarding the upcoming tournament. Rarity doesn't decide the winner in this survival game, the hunger to get stronger does. Our boy is clearly fully driven by that exact hunger. Preparing for the brutal fights ahead, he seriously asks for a custom pair of combat goggles. Over at the pet shop's safe house, a minion walks into a wild scene. The silver-haired executive has completely restrained the rampaging purple-haired woman with his threads. The purple-haired woman isn't one to back down. She forces her way out of the bindings, ignoring the bloody gash on her face, her eyes filled with pure murderous intent. She gets right in his face with a deadly warning. Faced with a literal death threat, the silver-haired executive sensibly laughs it off and withdraws his threads. Turning around to prepare some tea, the executive starts scheming. He is highly intrigued by this dangerous woman's secrets, especially regarding whatever happened to her at Nest 5 years ago. Haunted by the painful memory of Professor G calling her a monster, she sits down with a throbbing headache. Handing her tea, the executive smoothly drops an offer to help, letting the dark conspiracy slowly unfold. Meanwhile, the bound Giyon is plotting against the academy with another villain. Seeing him spike her tea, she coldly mocks that a man's sudden hospitality always comes with ulterior motives. Back at the academy, Professor G shows the class a photo of Black Island, the enemy's headquarters. To rescue their captive peers, Ness will host a special group tournament to select an elite infiltration team. While other students are excited about the chance to earn high marks, our boy looks dead serious. Everyone assumes he's worried about the victims, but his mind is actually entirely focused on his own grades. Having missed a class earlier to save Doa, he realizes his academic record is on the verge of ruin. Clutching his head in panic, he desperately vows to win this tournament at all costs. As Professor G brings up the bracket, the brutal rules are set. The class will be divided into 4 teams to fight it out, and only the ultimate victors will earn the right to step onto Black Island. The instructors announce the rules for the selection test. It's a 4-on-4 team battle using their insect abilities, but strictly no lethal moves. The victory condition is brutally simple. Each team must plant a flag to mark their base, and whoever steals the enemy's flag first wins. The students immediately catch on. This is a perfect simulation for the task force's real missions, hunting down enemy hideouts with 0 leads. Round 1 kicks off with Group A against Group B. Seeing our boy teamed up with the fierce Doa has the whole crowd hyped. As Group A quickly sets up their base flag, the match officially begins. On the screen, 2 girls from Group B immediately sprint toward their territory. They know finding a flag in a massive forest is useless. Instead, they plan to hunt down their opponents first, launching a swift aerial strike. But to their surprise, they walk right into a trap. Our boy apologizes politely, as his team instantly ambushes and ties them up, completely turning the tables. Facing a sudden and fierce attack, our boy and his partner barely manage to dodge. The opponent is using their spider abilities to swing a massive web like an iron mace. Unfazed by the heavy weapon, our boy uses his incredible Dragonfly speed to counterattack. Thinking the slow mace is full of openings, his partner dives in for a combined strike. But they underestimated their opponents. Just as they close in, The other girl suddenly shoots out a barrage of tough silk threads, completely entangling our guy in midair. With no room to evade, our boy instinctively shields his partner as they crash down. The opponents pull the threads tight, using flawless teamwork to pin them. Watching from the sidelines, Professor G cracks a satisfied smile. He knows perfectly well that while our boy's team might be stronger individually, their teamwork still has a long way to go. The spectators watch in anticipation, completely hooked by the intense clash. After all, the battle to crown the strongest freshman insect has only just begun.